Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. Sorry for the delay. We had a little bit of technical difficulty. Today is Thursday, February 27th. It is now 5:02 p.m. Maria, please call the roll.
Board Member Kovney,
Here. Here.
Board Member Weil,
Here.
Here.
Chair Gannon,
Here. Now, if you don't mind rising for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice. This is the picture.
You're matching Ms. Thalman. Okay, so for tonight, the meeting procedure will be as follows. First, we're going to have public communications. At that time, any member of the public who wishes to address the board may do so as long as this item's not on tonight's agenda, but in the purview of the Design Review Board. Each speaker will be given 2 minutes to speak. Then we're going to have the consent calendar, followed by the modification of the agenda order, which I believe tonight there is no modification. Then we're going to the regular order of business. I will introduce the item. The board will give ex parte. Staff will then give a fabulous presentation. And then the board will have the opportunity to question staff. At that moment, the public hearing will be declared open. The applicant team will have 5 minutes for their presentation, followed by 3 minutes by community members who wish to speak on that particular project. Then the applicant team will have 3 minutes for rebuttal. The board will then have the opportunity to question staff. Then the public hearing will be closed. Board will enter into discussion, have deliberation. Then somebody will make board will take action. There will be a motion on the action. Somebody will second that action. And then there will be a discussion on the motion, if any. And then there will be a vote. If any person residing within 300 feet of the project who disagrees with the board's action, they have 14 days to appeal. Okay. Public communications. At this time, any members of the public wish to speak on items not on tonight's agenda? No? All right. Consent calendar. We don't have anything on the consent calendar, so we're moving right into regular order of business. 5.1, located at 1550 Bluebird Canyon Drive. That is continued to May 8th. Is there any member of the public that wish to speak on the continuance for 1550 Bluebird Canyon Drive? Okay. Somebody like to make a motion?
Chair, I'll move that we continue the item 5.1, 1550 Bluebird Canyon Drive to May 8th, 2025.
I'll second that.
Yes.
Board Member Gibbs,
Yes.
Board Member Weil,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Thalman,
Yes.
Chair Gannon,
Yes. Next up is 5.2, located at 614 Seaview Street. Do we have ex parte?
Chair, I'm going to abstain on this.
Oh.
I'm in the 500-foot noticing area.
Okay.
I spoke with Warren. I exchanged emails with Warren.
I tried to call Warren.
And I spoke with Warren.
Chair, I suggest we do this on an expedited basis.
Okay. Yes, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair and members of the board. Item 5.2 is request for design review at 614 Seaview Street. The proposed project includes a 95 square foot lower level addition under an existing second story deck that results in the property exceeding building site coverage. Staff has not received any public correspondence regarding this item and finds the project consistent with the design review criteria and recommends that the board conduct a public hearing and adopt the attached resolution approving design review and finding said action exempt from CEQA. That concludes my presentation.
Fabulous presentation. Thank you, Sarah. All right. You have 5 minutes. Okay. Any members of the public wish to speak on 614 Seaview Street? Now's your opportunity. Nope. Okay. Does Sandy have anything to say?
She already said it.
Okay,
No, thank you.
okay. Do we have questions for the applicant?
No questions, but Chair, I find the board or find that the project meets the design review criteria. It's well outlined by staff and I'm fully supportive of their analysis and I'm supportive of the project this evening.
And I can echo Board Member Wiles' comments.
Chair, this is a very modest project. It's only coming before us because it exceeds maximum allowed building site. The findings for same can easily be made for, among other reasons. It's a very slight increase in the building site coverage, and it's much better than going to a second story for that area, and thus meets the criteria, and I can support the project.
I concur with my colleagues. I think it's a minor adjustment to coverage. I'm not a big fan of expanding beyond the coverage, but because this sits below the decking, it's sort of encapsulated into the existing house. So I can get behind the project.
Okay, do we have an approval? Motion to approve?
Chair, I move that the board adopt Resolution 24-2265, approving design review 24-2265 for a lower level addition that results in the property exceeding the maximum building site coverage and finding said action exempt from CEQA under 15301.
Second,
Board Member Coveney,
Yes.
Board Member Gibbs,
Yes.
Board Member Weil,
yes.
Chair Pro Tem Thalman, Chair Gannon,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you, board members.
wish I had my
Thank
easy
you,
button.
Sarah.
I should have my easy button.
Thanks, Warren.
I'll bring the easy button next time.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Chair Gannon.
Bye, Sadie. Yes.
Chair Gannon, I just wanted to mention that this was Sarah's first design review board meeting. She's been to the planning commission a couple times, but you may see her face here from time to time going
Wonderful.
forward.
Are you the same Sarah that I spoke to earlier today? Nice to put a face to the name. Thank you.
Welcome, Sarah.
Mhm.
Welcome. We'll see you again.
Great first presentation, at least for the design review. Christine Thalman, where is she? She's partying outside. Okay, next up is 5.3, located at 2894 Zell Drive. Do we have ex parte?
I spoke with the applicant.
I met with the applicant on site.
I drove by the site.
Visited the site.
And I spoke with the applicant. Is this another potential? Oh. Don't be shy.
Chair, have we requested an expedited hearing
You may
on this?
request that.
I'd like to request an expedited hearing.
So item 5.3 is an upper level addition. It's a conversion of existing attic space, and they're adding 2 dormers and a window on one of the elevations. And staff received correspondence from one of the neighbors regarding vegetation and maintaining at a certain height, and staff is recommending approval ultimately. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you for that fabulous presentation. All right, you have, do we have questions for staff?
Yeah, I just have one question. Is the height limitation for the landscaping in the back, is that in the plans or is that something that just was raised by the by
It
a
was
resident?
raised by the neighbor in the correspondence.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Sir, you have 5 minutes.
I don't think I have anything to say unless you guys want more info. I have no idea what I'm doing, but ask me questions.
Okay. Does that conclude your presentation?
That concludes.
All right.
yeah.
At this time, we open up to the public. Anyone that wishes to speak on 2894 Zell Drive, now is your opportunity. 2894 Zell Drive. No one? Okay. You have 3 minutes to speak your mind or pass it on to us for questioning you.
So are you guys.
Okay. Anyone have questions for the
I
applicant?
have a quick question.
Oh, yeah, go
Mr.
ahead.
Jacobs, Robert Jacob, the neighbor, have you read this letter and are you guys
so
amenable?
that issue was like a existing issue. He just wants the back hedge maintained between, sorry, he wants the back hedge maintained between 10 and 12 feet.
Yeah.
But that was an issue.
So all the details within this letter, you guys would agree to as a
Yeah, that's,
condition? of
yeah,
approval?
yeah.
Okay.
And
great.
we spoke on the phone about that, so that's
Okay,
fine.
lovely. Thank you.
Just to be clear, you're okay to make 10 to 12 feet in height a condition of approval?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
fine.
thanks.
Is it already part of or do we have to make a condition of approval for that height limit?
I'm looking at that right now. I may have to defer to Associate Planner Latham if he has more knowledge, but I'm vigorously control Fing as we speak.
The condition would have to be put in place.
Okay.
The reason for it is because the landscaping plan's part of the application.
Okay.
Well, would you like to begin with comments?
Yeah, meets all the design criteria. It's a very, very modest project. And with because the landscaping plan was part of the application, I think a 10 to 12 foot height is reasonable. And with that condition, I can support the project.
I concur with Mr. Gibbs. I think the dormers are a nice asset, definitely neighborhood compatible, and I can get behind the project.
And I can echo what my board members have said.
And I would say ditto with the same. I can agree with my board members.
Ditto. It meets the design review criteria.
Wonderful.
Louis,
Oh,
you
we
want,
we need a motion.
Louis,
You can do it.
I'll make a
The
motion.
two bookends.
I'm going to be off the stage a lot tonight, so I got to get as many words now. I move that the board adopt resolution 24 dash, wrong one. Give me a second. Maybe I should have let. It's on Zell. All right, here we go. I move that the board adopt resolution 25-0044, approving design review 25-0044 for addition 15 feet above grade in an R1 residential zone, and finding said action exempt from CEQA under 15301, with the condition that I believe trees at the back of the property, as set forth in the landscape plan, that's a part of the application, be limited to a height of between 10 and 12 feet.
Second.
Board Member Coveney,
Yes.
Board Member Gibbs,
Yes.
Board Member Weil,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Thalman,
Yes.
Chair Gannon,
Yes,
motion carried.
moving right
For not
along.
knowing what you're doing, you did pretty good.
You guys are way less scary than they told me.
Thank you. Next up is design review agenda item 5.4, located at 446 Holly Street. While the applicants take their positions at the table, do we have ex parte?
Chair, I'm going to recuse myself
Oh.
within 500 feet.
Anyone
Here I
else?
spoke with Marshall Innens and Steve Coratani and Gina Watson.
Ditto.
Steve Coratani, Momi Bartholomew, Larry Noakes, Marshall Innens.
Oh, and Larry Noakes.
Yeah, I never spoke to Larry. Ms. Watson, Steve Coratani, Ms. Barrett, and Marshall. Hope I got everybody right.
All right. Which one of you is doing this presentation over there? It's Sarah. All right. Number 2.
Item 5.4 is request for a design review for an upper level addition, a lower level addition, new windows and doors, a swimming spa, and landscaping located at 446 Holly Street. The subject property is located in North Laguna within the R1 zone, and it is improved with an approximately 2,405 square foot single-family residence and a detached 2-car garage with a storage room above. The proposed project includes a 125 square foot upper level addition for a master closet and a 107 square foot lower level addition to expand the existing family room and create an additional storage room. The new windows and doors are proposed in various locations at each level, but are not included with the new upper level closet addition. The project also includes the installation of a 3,299-gallon swimming spa with an equipment vault located at the rear of the property and updated landscaping throughout the property. Staff has received late public correspondence since the publication of the staff report from the adjacent neighbor at 452 Holly Street regarding the mass and scale of the proposed upper-level addition. Staff has analyzed the project to be consistent with the design review criteria and recommends that the board conduct a public hearing and adopt the attached resolution approving design review and finding said action exempt from CEQA.
Lovely. Thank you. Do we have questions for the staff? Anyone? No questions? Ms. Thalman? No? No? Okay. Marshall?
My name is Marshall Linens. I'm the architect for the project. Good evening, and thanks for being here. The project before you tonight has been previously approved as a remodel and addition at 446 Holly Street. After pricing the project, the client has chosen to reduce the scope of the work for the project and for the plan that's before you tonight. The additions to the house have gone from 787 square feet to 239 square feet. And the primary closet has gone from 190 square feet to 125 square feet. The spool in the backyard has been simplified. Gone is the family room addition, the downstairs bathroom additions, roof additions, things like this around the house. The 60s contemporary house is being renovated and repaired with only minor additions. The upstairs primary bedroom and bathroom will be remodeled, including all new plumbing fixtures. A small bathroom will be added to the existing bedroom on the second floor. The electrical, mechanical plumbing will be remodeled, including adding air conditioning, replacing some of the windows in kind. The 60s kitchen will be completely replaced in the same location. The project is a minor addition and remodel with modernization of the house exterior and a refresh of the outside finishes. I cede the rest of the time to Mr. Noakes.
Can I stand up here?
Absolutely.
Good evening, board. I'm Larry Noakes, and I'm working with the Barretts. After we received Bob's letter, I was pressed into action on this. This project is smaller than the one you already approved. And it has the same kind of cutoff feature of the corner that I know some of you have not found architecturally intriguing, but it's a product of having to cut off a part of that building in order to keep a view out of that upstairs bedroom from the neighbor. That's the whole reason that that chunk is gone. And those of you who worked on this will remember that. The ironic thing about the modification of this design to get rid of that corner, and we're not asking to add it back, it's still off of the project. But that view comes out of a view that is only achieved because that room has a variance. That room got a rear yard variance to achieve the height over the garage, and that's the only reason that room is there. And it seems odd to me that we are allowing a view achieved only by virtue of a variance to control a construction and design on a lot that is completely conforming with the property development standards and requires no variances. Now, we don't see any good reason to deny this project. It's less massive and less, I guess, what would be the word? Scaly? Not scaly, that's for reptiles, but it has less mass and scale.
Smaller scale.
It has smaller scale than the one that you already approved. The property, the condition of the neighborhood has not changed. The code really hasn't changed in any way that would affect this project. And we would ask you to approve this project tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Does that conclude your 5 minutes?
I don't know.
Did you bring anybody else?
I didn't time it.
No.
I could get somebody back there to say something.
Well, you haven't had the 30-second buzzard, so
Oh,
the
okay.
floor is still yours. Would you like to give up the rest of the time for
Yes, that'd be
going to
fine.
public?
That'd be
Okay.
fine. Let's-
At this time, any members of the public wish to speak on 446 Holly Drive?
Hi, I'm Gina Watson. I live at 452 Holly Street. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this matter. I've lived in Laguna for 30 years. When my husband and I purchased this home, it had been remodeled several years prior by the previous owners. We had nothing to do with the design. We felt so fortunate to finally be able to get a home with a view. It's a modest view, but nevertheless, it's our view. In 2020, we filed a view preservation with the city and it was accepted and documented. After seeing the staking on my neighbor's roof, I went over to their home to discuss the proposed remodel and try to come to some reasonable compromise. He was not interested in trying to work with me, which is quite unfortunate. I pointed out an overgrown tree on their property that not only blocks my view, but also prevents us from seeing the full scope of the project. I would like it trimmed for two reasons, so I can get my view and see our clear view and to find out exactly the extent of this project and how it affects us. It's my understanding from conversation I had with my neighbor that windows would be placed on one side only of this rooftop structure. After viewing the plans, I couldn't determine exactly where these windows were. I was also told that this project had been scaled down from the previous plans, although I believe the only thing scaled down was lower level additions. This rooftop structure not only affects the equity of our home, but also the quality of our life and our privacy. The closet not only impacts our view, but it looms over our main living area. I also have concerns regarding the removal of some trees to accommodate the pool spa. I have no problems or issues with the pool spa. I have one. I think they should have it if that's what they want. But with those particular trees removed, it exposes my daughter and my bedroom windows to the alley and the apartment/storage on top of their garage, leaving us very vulnerable and exposed. I was hoping we could replace the trees that they want to pull out with something possibly similar height that can still give us some privacy. I hope these concerns are taken into consideration while reviewing this project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Watson. Next speaker.
My name is Lucas. I've been living in 452 Holly since my parents bought the house 10 years ago. We chose this house because it has a yard and a view. The construction the Barretts would like to add takes away both of those. Not only will their addition ruin our view, it also towers over our yard. After my dad passed, me and my mom have been doing everything we can to protect what we have, and this is not helping with that. I hope everyone on the board understands how much this is hurting our property value and can make a fair decision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker.
Good evening, board. My name is Bob McMahon. I represent Gina Watson. I'm an attorney in town, as Larry is, and we're also Indian Princess dads. We've grown up here. Our kids have grown up, and we appreciate the efforts that have been made with respect to this project, but we think it can do better. This is a de novo. This is a de novo hearing. There's been prior consideration of this project. And my client.
Yeah, I'll turn it.
I thought I was being haunted. All right. Sarah, do you have Exhibit 1 to my letter from yesterday? There's some shading that we have that illustrates the impact. I believe I emailed this to each board member. The second story addition is probably the primary concern that we have. And we don't believe that view equity, massing, or privacy has been achieved with respect to the project as it relates to the second floor. And as this structure and its mass imposes over the pool and living area of the first floor. We believe that view equity could be better achieved with respect to the project. This isn't the first thing that Marshall or Larry have put on a roof, but a master closet on a roof is just not fitting to the Holly Street neighborhood. If you're balancing equities between what view Gina and her family have across this property, and yes, they were given a variance, but I don't know if that should necessarily cancel out a view just because you get a variance to put something up. And she didn't seek the variance. It ran with the property that she purchased. I think there's additional things that can be done if we could see the entire project, and there needs to be some more trimming of foliage that, at least when I went out there last week and looked at the views, you can't see all the stakes. I've been through the same thing in my neighborhood. So there is a record of view, and I think that is worthy of some degree of recognition. And you can see the view planes. That's Exhibit 2 to what I've offered. To wrap up, we think that the components of view equity, privacy, design integrity, design articulation, neighborhood compatibility, and vegetation, both from the standpoint of privacy and what's occluding the view of the stakes right now, should be brought into better perspective. Please look at my package that I've submitted. I put some effort into it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. That's a guy I don't get to see as often as I'd like, but I guess only here, Bob. Anyway, I just wanted to address a couple of things. Sarah, could you put up, I sent over some photos today, and if you could just put up the first one from Denise. All of the view concern seems to be taken out of that upstairs room that was achieved with the variance. And that's a picture of the window from the ground level at the Barrett's house. And if we could get to the next picture, please. And these other ones will be views out of the out of the rooms and out of the window up top. First of all, there's one out of the window, and you can see the staking. That's actually the old staking when the project was bigger. That was taken back for the old project, but it's not the zoomed effect that you got from the ones that Bob showed you. This was just taken from the room, I think by Liza, perhaps, when they did a walkthrough for the project before. The record of view is irrelevant because that is a record that is obtained under the view ordinance, which I had a hand in writing. And the purpose of that is to deal with vegetation only. It has no impacts on structures. You are only guided by the design review criteria. And in this case, one of the design review criteria that you're primarily working with, I think, is view equity. And I will state again that view equity objectively is achieved here. But if you consider that these views are only obtained and only possible because there is a variance, and it doesn't matter who got the variance, it was Bob and Linda Dietrich that got the variance. But the idea of that was to create an additional room. It wasn't to put artificial limiting gloves on the Barretts for anything that they could ever possibly do on their property, even though those things they're seeking to do are compatible and completely compliant with the property development standards. So I would ask that this project be approved. The Barretts would like to have a pool. They were cooperative, nothing but cooperative when Ms. Watson put in her pool. In fact, during the construction of that pool, their retaining wall was knocked down. They didn't sue Ms. Watson, they just rebuilt the retaining wall. So they're good neighbors, they've done the right thing, they've always been considerate, they're being considerate here. They've lopped off a significant amount of program to accommodate this view, which has resulted in kind of an odd corner, but it's one that was requested by the neighbor. So it shouldn't be criticized because it's a result of this process. So we would ask that this project be approved tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Marshall? You have maybe 5 seconds. Okay. All right. Board, any questions for the applicant? You look like you're contemplating something.
The building height, it says the existing is 22 and the proposed is 20?
Turn your mic
higher.
Your mic.
Okay, I didn't get that from the
I turned it off. Yeah,
POV.
the second story, existing second story is higher than the
So
closet.
you're only 2 feet above existing
Yeah,
ridge height of the master or primary bedroom.
below,
Below, sorry.
yes.
So
Right.
It came up about the trees being removed in the backyard for the pool and potentially opening up some privacy concerns. Currently in that space, are there any plantings or how did you choose to address that issue of the big significant trees coming out?
We didn't, because it was basically felt that when you sit in the backyard right now and you look up at those windows, you can't see in them. You know, at night with the lights on and no blinds down, you could probably see in it. But standing in the backyard, even I took Mary Jo back there today and had her look up at it. You can't see into the windows. And the trees were primarily planted because the windows from the neighbor's property look right down in the back into the living room, the den in the back of the house, the bedrooms. They look into all the windows, and the trees were planted to protect their privacy. And now when they put the pool in, they're just going to close the blinds. There's no trees proposed there. You don't put, it's really difficult to put trees like that next to a pool because all it'll do is fill the pool with leaves. They shed too much. And so, and then we need the area and where the root balls are when we dig the pool, we'll kill the trees.
But there will be a fence.
Oh, there will be a fence, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Did you figure it out?
Yeah.
Got it. Any questions? All right. We'll move into board comments. Who likes to go first on this one? You think Louis? Well, we were the 3 that voted for it the first time, so it's right that we go first. Okay. Louis?
So, I think looking back at my notes in the minutes from this one, I think we made some adjustments to this project before it got approved. And then I think in my own analysis, I looked at, there was the chimney line from a reasonable place in the room to be able to see, which is why that shape of the closet was at the angle that it is. Because I think I determined then, and I still determine now, that to the right side of that chimney, there's no significance of view, but there's little peekaboo just to the left. And so by keeping the program the same as it was when I approved it the last time, I see the conditions to be the same. It's a balance of the rights to build versus the rights to view equity is how we described it then. I think it still applies today for the closet. There's no windows in this room, so there's no privacy issues of staring back. It also is a conundrum when you talk about view equity on sites in general. For someone to be able to peer diagonally through someone's lot to achieve a small view restricts someone's property rights. And I think that was a big part of this discussion for this one, and it applies to this today. So I'm supportive of it from that the project meets the view equity component and privacy. The pool, there will be a decent wall. You have to have the barriers for pool safety. So I think those will be met with this design. I just wanted to ask the question about the significant trees. I think they've been, shaped and, maybe past their time. They might be ruining some sewer lines, but I don't see there being a privacy issue in the backyard any more so than what exists between the 2 neighbors today. So I can support the project as is tonight. Yeah.
And I was also at the first hearing of this, and I would agree with Board Member Weil. I'm sympathetic to Ms. Watson, what she is trying to preserve. And it's a very small percentage of that view. I saw more obstruction across the way. There was a lot of landscaping, large trees that maybe if they were laced, that would improve the view, at least from her balcony. But this project meets all the design review guidelines. It's something we've seen before. You reduced the size of the master closet. I don't see any reason why it can't be approved tonight. So I'm going to be supportive of the project.
And I too can support the project on a conditional approval that you comply within a reasonable time frame. I'd say the next 30 days for the view preservation that the neighbor has. Would you be amenable to that?
What does that mean?
The tree that you have that's overgrown right now, that's covering the chimney?
That was the tree that they didn't want us to remove. So we can lace it out. We'll be glad to lace it out.
But what is, okay, so what is the tree then that's part of the view preservation that was filed in 2020 or
We don't
2022?
have any, except for those 3 trees. Then we have palm trees and a jacaranda in the front that have
Okay.
been there for 30 years. And so
So
there's
there's
some
no
other
view
trees
preservation?
beyond it that are not on our property.
No, I'm trying to find the photo. I saw there's a photo. What's the view preservation then for that? Am I getting it wrong? Okay. Yeah, so that tree's not on your property?
What
That's,
tree is it?
Covering between you and
Can I come and
the
look at it?
neighbor?
Since
guess
Lewis
so.
has such
Jessica.
a little picture.
Jessica.
Hold on, wait, let me pass it to you. I'm gonna lock my screen.
Sorry to derail.
Is this in the record or?
Yeah, it's in the public document, in late correspondence.
Is it this?
It's that, yes, correct.
Is that not the tree that's part of the view preservation?
I'm not following you, Jessica. What are you asking?
So there's a view preservation that Mrs. Watson mentioned, and I'd like to have the applicant adhere to that trimming.
You just have, that's your jacaranda. Yeah.
The view is being obstructed by the tree, so
But
I'd like to make a condition of approval that within 30 days from now,
Don't know what tree you're talking about.
whatever is in the view preservation, whatever is filed in the view preservation.
Jessica, this is,
You can't, because I'm looking at this picture that Lewis is looking at. There's some olive trees which are on 452. There's some sort of tree, looks like a citrus tree. It's on 452. There's a jacaranda, which is maintained all the time and trimmed. And then there's some looks like a queen palm or something behind it. And then there's some big, huge eucalyptus. That's on the neighbor's property to the south or towards the ocean
Yeah.
from their property. And in fact, it was just laced out really nice. And so I don't mind doing it, but I don't know exactly what we're committing to.
I'm not following.
And I can't find the photo that I took of,
So if you look at,
I guess not. Can we open the public hearing to bring Mrs. Watson forward? Because she made the comment.
That is.
The public hearing is reopened. Mrs. Watson, can you please, or the attorney? Okay.
Please hang on. Please, you have, just speaking to the mic. Just hang on. You guys.
Please come to the mic.
Got the record of view. It's attached as Exhibit 2 to my correspondence to the city. There are, but the official document that was received is right here. Maybe it would give the board some added benefit to consider it. And it is part of the public record and attached to my.
Robert, what trees are they talking about?
I believe they're talking about trees that are to the left of the chimney.
That's our neighbors.
Got it?
Yeah, but which one?
Okay,
Because
so we got these.
this is the tree that's on the other side of the house that's
Okay.
not on their
Well, let's look
property.
at all.
Hang
the
on,
photos.
gentlemen, could
Yeah.
we,
Yeah, okay.
could we speak into the mic, and then if that is,
Sure.
Can you talk into the mic?
We can stand here together. This is typically something that's handled by code enforcement. They have a whole department that deals with this. And if Bob and Gina believe that the Barretts are in violation of the preservation deal, there's a whole department in code enforcement that just does this. They're good at it. They're experienced with it. It shouldn't be a condition of this approval. But if code enforcement gets involved, they'll be happy to deal with it. I just can't tell what we're dealing with. And I can't tell if we can make a motion with any precision tonight. Thank
Okay,
you.
that's
So-
fair enough.
What we're looking at as part of the record of view, there is
With all due respect, I agree with Mr. Noakes that this should be passed on since there's no exact tree identification. There's no way for the board to make that condition of approval.
We'll deal with it.
Yes, I've,
And so we're back in another circumstance where we have something that's obstructing a
you'll,
view.
you'll need to file
they're
a
gaining-
complaint with
they're
the view
gaining because you
preservation.
can't see all the stakes. Then they get an approval for what they're blocking and you can't see it.
Yes, we
Okay,
approved this before where
enough.
the tree was less laced. Thank you. Okay, the
May I-
public hearing is now closed.
And
Did you have
To
comments?
open up that public hearing.
Open that can of worms.
Yes, I have some comments. I'm the fresh eyes on this project. I always look at projects, even though they were before the board for, with a fresh eye and my own perspective on it. But I concur with their previous decision to have approved this project. I don't really see a privacy issue at all. A slight, a view impact, but to me, it's a minor one. And I think once it's all built, it will sort of just go away. It just feels imposing, but I don't think it's going to be that bad when it's done. And I don't think it is a serious view impact. So I think you've met the criteria there. You've met the criteria for privacy. The pool and the trees against that side, well, there's just no way to keep those. I think they're beautiful and I think it's wonderful for your neighbors, but if it's going to create a mess in your pool continually, then it can't be there. I think that it's easily mitigated as neighbors do. We pull our shades if we don't want to look down, and they're not going to stand there and look down. But if they felt like, I know you can't see them looking up. So if they're concerned about looking at you, they can just shut their shades, if that makes sense in a sort of backwards way. So, so privacy's there. It's a smaller scale, I believe, than the last approval. So I think that I can get behind it.
All right,
Chair, may I ask one question real quick?
absolutely.
Regarding the discussion you brought up on the view preservation, just for staff to clarify, it was mentioned in the public comment that view preservation is really just for the foliage and the trees, but when it's applied to someone's right to build, how is view preservation interpreted?
So it is true, it is for vegetation purposes only. And if the board were to condition a tree to be a certain height, it would supersede the view preservation. But that would be in that particular case, if that was the case.
Thank you.
And then secondly, because it came up a question of whether we could visibly see the stakes, I think a straw vote that like you all can acknowledge that we saw the stakes clearly. As I walked around the property on the neighbor's property, I could see them just like I did whatever, 5, 6 years ago. It was very visible.
Yeah. The photo that I can't find now that showed a peekaboo view was maintained. And if I remember correctly, it's even improved even more since the first approval. I was just trying to throw the neighbor a bone by doing the foliage. Do we have a motion to approve?
Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the project at 446 Holly Street, approving design review 242367 for modifications to a prior approval that include an upper level addition, new windows and doors, a new swimming spa, landscaping, and finding project approval exempt from CEQA pursuant to section 15301 of the California Environmental Quality Act.
And I'll second the
Board Member Coveney,
Yes.
Board Member Gibbs, Board Member Weil,
yes.
Chair Pro Tem Thalman,
Yes.
Chair Gannon,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you very much. And Samantha, you did a good job on your second DRB hearing.
Marshall, that shirt's a little loud.
All I gotta say is
It fits the personality.
Christina decides to dye her hair pink or put a streak in, I'm not doing it.
Can you hit the mic before you go? I think it's on.
So next up is agenda item 5.5, located at 607 Short Street. While the applicant team takes their positions, board, do we have ex parte?
Chair, excuse me, I met with the owners, and I also met with the neighbors, Allison and Miles Mahoney at 615 Short Street. And that's it.
Sorry, I went to the side, met with Drew Blake, Mr. and Mrs. McIntosh, Steve Coratani, and Mr. and Mrs. Mahoney next door.
Met with Mr. and Mrs. Mahoney, Steve Coratani, spoke on the phone with Mr. McIntosh.
I met with the McIntoshes and also the Mahoneys and Steve Cartani.
Chair, I forgot, I also met with Steve Cortani.
And I too met with Steve Cortani and the neighbors next door, the Mahomies, and the applicant team. All right.
Good evening, Chair and members of the board. Item 5.5 is design review and coastal development permit for 607 Short Street. The project is located on the western side of Short Street in the R1 zone across from Laguna Beach High School. The existing neighborhood consists of 1- and 2-story homes with adjacent residences being 2 stories. The project is an existing 1,441 square foot single-family home with an attached 2-car garage. The scope of work proposed for the project includes a major remodel to add a 1,033 square foot second level addition, 52 square foot addition to the existing garage, 325 square feet of elevated decking at the first level, and an 80 square foot elevated deck at the second floor. Landscaping and lighting improvements are also incorporated, and there is a detached ADU in the rear that is subject to a coastal development permit, but not with design review. The second level addition is located along the southeastern property line. The applicant has included opaque windows on the second story to preserve neighbor privacy. The proposed design, colors and materials, and development are compatible with the neighborhood and existing structure. Staff has analyzed the applicant's request with respect to the city's development standards and the board's direction and determined that the project conforms to zoning codes, general plan policies, and design review guidelines. Additionally, staff believes that the CDP findings for the project can be made. Staff recommends that the board conduct a public hearing and adopt Resolution 24-0772, approving design review 24-0772 and coastal development permit and finding said action exempt from CEQA. After publication of the agenda, staff has received public comments noting privacy concerns, mass and scale, and view equity issues with the project. The board can determine whether or not that affects their ability to that affects the project's ability to meet the design review criteria. That concludes my presentation. The staff, the architect, and the applicant are also available for questions.
Beautiful presentation. Thank you. Board, do we have questions for staff? No? Going around the room? Okay, you have 5 minutes. Mr. Blake?
Okay, thank you. My name is Drew Blake, and I'm the designer for the project. I wanted to thank you all again for coming out to the site. I appreciate understanding the new design that we're working on and what we're trying to accomplish out there. The project is located at 607 Short Street. This lot size is 7,110 square feet with an existing lot coverage of 23%. The new lot coverage will be 28%. The McIntoshes have lived in this house since 2002 and raised their daughter here in Laguna Beach. Since the time of the purchase of this home, my clients have always wanted to add a second story to have a little bit more of an ocean view, to add to the kitchen, make it a little bit more usable and functional, a new bathroom, as now there's only one bathroom in the home that they've all had to share over these years. Most of the homes in this area are 2 stories, including the residences on both sides of this home, as well as many of the homes behind this residence on Los Robles. The house is very modest in size, and this existing house is 1,441 square feet. With this new remodel design, the new will go up to approximately 2,600, well below the average size of the house in this area. We started this process with mass and scale on our minds to keep the project lower and in scale with the neighborhood compatibility. We worked hard to keep the house modest, designing the ceiling heights to the standard 8-foot plate and the roof slope to a shallow 3 and 12. We kept the windows on the south elevation narrow and smaller and are willing to work with the neighbors on the issues of privacy with some type of opaque glass if needed. The upper deck is set back as to not impede anyone's views, again, keeping the privacy and exposure to a minimum. We are adding 390 square feet to the lower level in the rear yard and 807 square feet on the upper level addition. We wanted to keep the beautiful open space of the site intact. We've worked hard to be sensitive to the neighbors by keeping the house as low as possible with the 8-foot plate and the shallow roof. The design of the new house will be in the beach house vernacular with architectural details and accent trims in keeping with the look and feel of the early Laguna Beach homes. We know there's been some concern from adjoining neighbors, and we're willing to make some small adjustments to accommodate their concerns. We understand that all of us in the neighborhood need to compromise, and we're willing to do so as well. In the end, we hope this new addition will be beautiful to the neighborhood, as well as offer to the McIntoshes the space and added square footage they have been longing for years. Thank you.
Thank you. You still have time? Yeah, if you'd like to speak.
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you, board. And I'd like to thank everyone for coming out, taking a look. But as Drew said, we've owned the house, my wife, Vicky, and I, and a daughter. She was a newborn when we bought the house in 2002. And basically, we're 20 years in on a 3-year remodel. And one thing after another got in the way. But yeah, so we tried to keep this really scaled back for everybody that fit the neighborhood. It's a great neighborhood, great neighbors. And we've always been really good neighbors to everyone, and we continue to be so and do so. But we plan on multi-generational living and to age in place. Oh, next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, if you could. That's that. Next, the lot adjoins 5 different properties, and all 5 are 2-story houses with views and decks, and one of them has 3 decks. So basically, we're just trying to achieve that. We're trying to reduce and eliminate impact on neighbors and modestly take care of that. Next slide, please. This is some of the neighbor concerns and mitigations that we've had, and we sent this to you guys so you have it. So next, please. This is, for instance, the privacy for the folks behind us at 480. This is the proposed views from the proposed master bedroom towards 480. And the kind of thing that we talked about was that's 5 foot below our grade, and put a lattice on the wall for with vines for privacy. You see on the right-hand side. Did that. Next, please. Same thing with 472 Los Robles. That's the view corridor. That's from the proposed deck, and that's about 50 feet from the fence. And so you can see behind her pool deck there, and then on the right-hand side, a little bit of shrubbery in that gap. And then you can see that goes a long ways throughout this. Next, please. Same thing there. That she was kind enough to send these from her perspective. That's about 80 feet away. See on the right, it's bushes in the way. Next, please. Same thing there. Next. And same thing there. See, this is some of the mitigations that
In
Drew talked
conclusion.
about. Okay.
Okay, you'll have 3 minutes to speak later.
All right, thank you.
At this time, any members of the public wish to speak on 607 Short Street? That's your turn. Yes, please.
Thank you to the board and to our neighbors for hearing our input on the McIntosh proposed plan. We've met with the McIntoshes on 3 occasions, and finding ourselves at an impasse, we're here to really seek to preserve the relationship that we have with the McIntoshes. Miles and I believe all our neighbors should be able to make improvements to their home, and want to state we're not against the McIntoshes making improvements. From the point in time the McIntoshes let us know that they had a plan and asked for our input, we've given consideration and met with them within 24 hours of each request. They've been on an urgent time frame. We've been willingly supportive and kept pace with their meeting requests. Once the stakes went up at Thanksgiving, it was even more clear how impactful the proposed plan would be for our home. Each time we met, we thoughtfully shared our concerns for privacy, light, lifestyle, blocking mass, and the proposed front to back wall completely along one side of our home. It was even more clear once we saw the stakes. So we invited them over to take a look at this impact. They both took photos. We described our concerns. Our lot and theirs have a smaller easement, and our homes stand at the same elevation. So their proposed plan represents a significant impact to our privacy and also enjoyment of our home. When we bought our home, we had been searching for over 4 years. Our home was built in 1937, and it was thoughtfully designed to maximize the privacy, light, and the functionality for the size of each room. We needed a 4-bedroom home for our family of 5 and space to work during daytime hours. We have conference video calls. We have corporate employers plus run a family business from our home. We spend about 12 hours every weekday in these rooms, working and conducting business with the door closed so that we don't impact the rest of our family and living space. So in terms of using our bedrooms upstairs, they're not just for sleeping. We picked our house so that we could work and also our kids work and study from these rooms. Even from our master bathroom, toilet, and bathtub, we can see their proposed home and they can see ours. It's an intrusion of privacy. During the years, we have been next door neighbors and friends. We've enjoyed a close relationship with the McIntoshes, and we even got speed bumps put in on our street together. To close, when we had our third conversation, one of the points the McIntosh mentioned that they expected to be asked to potentially push back the upstairs design, but were not prepared to discuss any expectations with us. They didn't want to discuss in advance and unnecessarily reduce the size and scale of their upstairs or tolerate more delays before they're made to rebuild. They said they're changing their plans to impact the privacy they're seeking. So basically, to wrap up, we're counting on the board to help us navigate. The McIntoshes have acknowledged that they're also seeking privacy and don't want to view the mass of our home. So we know there's a way forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, board, and thanks for hearing our point of view on the second story addition of the McIntosh home. This has been a very difficult process for our family as we've enjoyed a friendship with the McIntoshes over the last 5 years. What's at stake is not just the addition of a second story on their home, but the fundamental right to privacy, to our views, to our peace of mind, and the precedent it sets in our community going forward. I also want to underscore, we understand and support the McIntoshes making improvements to their property and improving and enhancing their living space, but not at the expense of our privacy, our views, the lighting, and the quality of life. Have some of you had the chance to visit our home, specifically see the area impacted by the second story addition? We spend about 70% of our waking, working, and sleeping hours in the north run of our home directly impacted and affected by the second story addition that they're proposing. First, the new structure will block the sunlight in the open air space that provides privacy and quality in our daily lives. And yes, we transition to working in 2 of the 3 rooms on that side of the home each and every day. We cherish the natural light and the air that fills our home from the northwest side of our house. Without it, it would feel dark, closed off, and pretty uninviting. Secondly, the proposed second story addition will obstruct our views and our view equity and the light from every room along the north-facing side of the property, which we've considered a significant benefit of living, working, and spending time in this area of our home. It really is our main living space. The view of the water and the hillside have been a peaceful aspect of our daily life, and it would be really disheartening to see that aspect just disappear. I want to express how important this view is to our family, not just as a luxury, but a part of what makes our home special. In fact, on one occasion, we had Vicki and Steve, just like some of you did, come over to our home and see for themselves the impact their proposed project would have on the entire side of our home. I asked Steve, how would you feel if you were in my shoes and I was proposing what you're proposing? Steve responded, I'd be upset. This is truly significant. It's not a neighborly spat. We love the McIntoshes. This has a true impact to our quality of life and the value of our property. But it's not only the views that are at risk. The addition of the second story led to a lack of privacy in areas of our property that probably still haven't even been explored. Privacy is not about addressing and putting window coverings or frostings on the windows themselves. It's the impact and the unknown of a structure looking into our living space, our backyards. Frosted windows or not, it feels invasive. So I want to thank you guys for your consideration, and I hope the board can make some recommendations that make the living space that we've been accompanied to and the improvements that they want to make mutually beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, Mr. Kawaratani?
Swetha, could you cue me up, please? Thank you. My name's Steve Kawaratani, and I see since I've last seen Board Member Coveney and Chair Gannon, they've been to the salon. Good job, guys. Okay. So I'm often, you know what, both your hairs are thinning, so. So that being said, the board members often ask me if I look at design articulation. Look at the upper floor there, and we're getting to the crux of the problem. It's 45.5 feet of unremitting program, and it's jammed right next to the Mahoney's. The solution here really is to shorten the length of the upper story and move it further away. Next slide. Next slide, please. So I'd like to talk about view equity really quickly. This particular image shows what the impact would be from this room. And view, air, and light really are going to be greatly compromised. And that's what I want to remind the board. You know, you all visited the site, you saw the story poles. This is what it's going to look like. And I believe that, you know, although Drew said they're trying to capture a little view, and it's fair that the McIntoshes are, that should not be at the expense of the neighbor. Next slide. Another example of the view equity issue. Drew mentioned that, I'm sorry, Mr. McIntosh mentioned that there's probably going to be compromise, and we do understand and we appreciate it. But at this point, the project as presented is truly unacceptable. Next slide. I'd like to talk about neighborhood compatibility. As the applicants have pointed out, many homes have second stories in the general vicinity, and the McIntoshes have every right to pursue that. That's really not our issue. However, when you're stacking almost the entire program against the Mahoney's, therein lies the problem. So again, I believe that that upper level should not necessarily be reduced, but it should be moved over, and it should probably span the entire width of the property to have a more balanced look. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Koratani. Any other speakers? Okay.
Hello, my name's Jeff Amos. My husband Todd Brooks and I live at 480 Los Robles, the house directly behind the proposed house. We appreciate the opportunity to share our perspective. As we know, these decisions require careful thought. We've had a good relationship with the McIntosh family since they moved in, fully support their desire to improve their home. However, we have concerns about the addition, how it affects our property, and particularly in terms of privacy. We've lived in our home for 25 years. One of the things we valued is the privacy and openness of our backyard, carefully configured so that it doesn't, that it has a private spot within that backyard. The proposed second story addition is very close to our property. Their placement significantly impacts both the sense of privacy and overall enjoyment of our outdoor space. The second floor in particular looms directly over our back patio, creating a much more enclosed feeling than we've had before. It also blocks our view of the hill. So from upstairs, we can see the hill. We won't see the lights of the hill anymore, which has been an important cherished feature of our home. We wonder if there's any flexibility in the plans that could help us mitigate these efforts. Perhaps a pullback of certain elements might make a meaningful difference in maintaining privacy and keep the new structural blend more smoothly with the surrounding properties. We know Steve and his family put a great deal of thought into the remodel. We respect that. We hope that some compromise can be found to allow them to move forward with their improvements while also considering the longstanding character and privacy of our home. There's some proposed plants to put in place, but it would really just kind of create a canyon as close as the structure is to our house. Just create a canyon feel in our backyard. My neighbor that we share the back with 607, Jeannie Myers, I believe also sent a letter to the board. I sent a letter this morning to the board voicing these concerns.
What was your address again?
480
480.
Los Robles. And 472 Los Robles also sent a message, but she's out of town today. We have similar issues.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any other speakers? Okay, you have 3 minutes for a rebuttal.
Very good. Shavita, could you pull up the slide, please? Basically, nice to hear everybody speak, and some of these things we've talked to them about. There's actually 16 feet between the houses. I've been in Laguna a long time, and I don't think that's very close in that. Everybody talks about privacy. We'll get to that. One of the things that I'm going to bring up here was next slide, I think, is where we're at. Oh, yeah, one more. Oh, no, back. I'm sorry. Back a couple more, please, Shavita. One more. Yes, so there we were. We'd cover those issues. Could you go back a couple more so I could address Mr. Amos? Keep going. One more. I know I'm burning my time. A little more. One more. There it is. That's back. That's where he was talking about. That's the view that he was talking about in his window. Back one more, please, Shavita. There we go. So his space is back there. I see that. And also the neighbor looks into his space as well there. And we're going to try to eliminate that. So then moving on here, keep going if you would, please. Keep going. We need a few more. We lowered here we go. Front bedroom. We're going to remove that tree. So that front bedroom at the 615, the Mahonies will be taken care of. Next slide. This is the view out the middle bedroom. So a little different than Mr. Quaratani's. You can see our poles there, and then you see a lot of blue light above, and you can still see an ocean view there. And to the right, you can see when we take that tree out, that middle bedroom will have a hill view. Next slide, please. And that's the back views. Next slide from 615. That's their previous owner back corner bedroom. You can see their primary view out the back and then their side view. Next slide. This is the current one with the desks with the primary view out the back and the side view with the couch backed up against it. You can see our poles there, and that couch was moved for the design review purposes and the desk put there. Next slide. This is the back corner office. You can see to the left of the poles, is it still an ocean view and sky above it? Next slide. And this is the problem we would have with the big mass all the way across. This is what we're looking at. And it's been talked about, let's flip it to the other side. Basically, that goes against every design review guideline that there is, building to look into someone. So I'd be looking from those windows up above, 7 of them, towards those 3 sets of windows there. And the deck would be fully exposed to them. So there's absolutely zero privacy for either of us. So that was suggested by the Mahoney several times. And they talk about privacy here. And I think we're doing everything for privacy that could be happening.
And in conclusion?
In conclusion, I just want to say that we are doing everything we can. We'd like to look into, we can't see into the backyard. They have trees there, so I don't know what everybody's talking about that, but we're willing to work with everybody here to try to come up with some amiable ideas and processes, so.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant?
I have one question. I mentioned this to you when I was out.
Yeah.
The suggestion that we're hearing from your neighbors at 615, certainly from Steve Cardani, their consultant, is move the second story to the other side of the property.
Yeah.
What's the feasibility and issues in your mind from doing that?
Well, that last slide, Shavita, if you could bring that last slide up, that kind of says it. Basically, it's several issues. It's it creates a massive structure all the way across the front of the facility or the house.
No, I'm talking about moving the second story to the other side of the lot.
Right. And so what happens when we do that, we're working around an existing floor plan. There's very little that we can do. We're not tearing it down. We're not building from a new. So what ends up happening, that shows it flipped over. We have one spot for the stairs, which is basically in where it was, and it's been suggested that we just build all the way across then, and that's what we end up with. But we're just limited on where we can put stairs. We've got issues with plumbing, electrical. It cost prohibitive. We got to work on concrete, a lot more concrete work to build all the way across. And then when you get on the other side, looking back, like I say, there is, you can see that that would be our place up there on top, 7 windows looking back at them with the 3 windows. So, and we have a deck that's wide open. So some of the design review guidelines that I saw said, don't build to look into someone's house, and that's what this would be. And don't build your deck to where people can see you and you can see them. And that's totally what that would be. So, and it's also a loss of a view corridor.
Any other questions?
That's it.
Okay, any questions? I'm ready for comments. So also included in the design review guidelines is view blockage that includes not only the ocean, but a hillside. And the photo that I took in that primary room, which is now being used as an office, yes, it has that peekaboo view of the ocean, but for me, that I noticed that it has a phenomenal, and I should have submitted this to the city, and I will after tonight's meeting, so it's on public record. But that hillside is absolutely gorgeous, and it would completely, and I'm saying everything that I'm going to say now, I said to you when we met, that would significantly devalue that property next door. My suggestion, what I recommend is I understand the stairs needing to be located where they are. Keep the stairs there, but drag the house completely like a more traditional style house, 2-story house where it goes across the width of the roof, and then keep the articulation. You have a brilliant architect there. I'm sure he can figure it out. The ADU, I think there's a neighbor, one of your 5 neighbors talking about a building that was being proposed. That's an ADU. We can't depict an ADU. What's that? No. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I support the project. I love your materials. I just don't support overloading the left side. But I understand why you explained really well why you have to have the stairs on the left side. So if you can work that out to take the program across the width, you can have my support.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. I've thought a lot about this project, and I'm going to go through the guidelines which bind us and what we're supposed to be applying. And I'm doing this, from an uninvolved person. This is 2 neighbors that have distinct interests. So it's important to understand where I'm coming from. I start with design articulation, and I think that the project is well designed. It's an attractive project. I think even the 2nd-story elevation northeast facing the Mahoney's is sufficiently articulated. It has the same essential articulation as the Mahoney's property on that side, with the exception of smaller windows, which I would require be opaque, that are done to preserve privacy. Neighborhood compatibility. I walked the whole neighborhood. I took pictures everywhere. 2nd stories are totally neighborhood compatible throughout the whole neighborhood. Indeed, a lot of the 2nd stories, including the Mahoney's, are larger than what's being proposed here. So I find the 2-story is neighborhood compatible. And this 2nd story doesn't extend all the way across. So it has less of a mass and scale from the front and the back. And it extends about the same distance as the Mahoney's, whereas the Mahoney's go all the way across. So they have a much larger mass and scale house than what's being proposed. And that's not atypical. I mean, it's a beautiful home. I love their home. And there's a lot of beautiful 2nd story. In fact, that is the norm, to have significant, on this scale, 2nd story. Mass and scale, so that's the issue. And I'll get to privacy and view equity. The mass and scale, I find, meets the criteria. It's consistent with the neighborhood. The fact that there is a building along a property line is also consistent throughout that neighborhood. The 16 feet is, I think, a decent spread to preserve light and air and to reduce the mass and scale. And as I said, if you look at the two sides between 615 and the applicant 607, the mass and scale is, I think, kind of tilts toward 615 having a larger mass and scale than what's being proposed. And again, I find it articulated on all sides. And the least articulated is on the side facing the Mahonies, but on that side, it is against their property, which has equal, minimal articulation. So I think it meets the standards there. With respect to switching the second story to the other side, I think that does create a lot of feasibility problems. In addition to having the garage articulated where it is and having it balanced, the second story balanced the way it does, presents, I think, a far better project. So I'd have to find a real compelling need to force that switch. Moreover, the neighbor on the other side has a courtyard patio. So if you move the project over there, you'll have similar mass scale privacy issues. Unfortunately, when there's a building, you had a smaller scale single-story home for a long time in this location where two-story is the standard there now and neighborhood compatible. It's going to have some mass and scale impact. And I commend the applicant for moving it back and providing decent spacing. And I was particularly compelled by the photos shown on the reply that shows what I saw, which was, notwithstanding there's going to be a building there, it is not like it's 5 feet or even 10 feet away, which can create some light and air problems. I think overall the balance justifies this project with respect to mass scale, light and air. With respect to privacy, the views, I'll get to the views in a second. The privacy issues are an issue, which is, in my mind, totally resolved by making the second story windows opaque. If they are, and they're minimal to begin with on that side, you have a couple of small windows, a stairway window, and then 2 additional windows. Because the way that they built the Mahoney's house, where they put a lot of, rooms with windows along that side, expecting it would always be a single story there, I guess. I think it does call for opaque windows on that side to provide them the kind of privacy that they should have with those rooms. So that leaves view equity. The view equity, in my mind, is achieved in this property or in this project. And that's because the primary views are in the back, and that's true of the houses throughout the neighborhood toward the ocean, not surprising. Yes, there's side views. Those side views may be a little less impacted if you build the second story further away, but in my mind, not significantly. I think view equity is achieved. With all of that said, I would approve the project tonight. I'm not sure that the modifications that you're willing to make, and I appreciate you saying I'll do modifications, are the kind of modifications that the Mahonies are looking for. They're looking for a major remodel, which is either moving the whole second story to go along the face of your property, so it's one big second story, one story, second story house, which I would have some mass and scale issues with and neighborhood compatibility, or moving it in a lateral way along the other side of the property line. Barring that, I do not see any minor tweaks, although I'm interested in what my fellow board members have to say, that are necessary. So for all those reasons, I can approve the project tonight.
Mrs. Schwarmer, did you receive my photo? Yes, please, for view equity. So in Laguna Beach, we have two views. We have canyon views and we have, well, three views: canyon views, hillside views, and ocean views.
What are you showing us?
The view. I'm trying to give an objective finding of what a view is. Okay. Okay. Would you like another board member to speak? Okay. Anyone else?
Okay. I appreciate a lot of what Board Member Gibbs said. He really kind of went off a lot of points. But I do have a couple things, and I'll try to keep it a little shorter. As far as the design review guidelines and how you guys have approached this, I really appreciate your approach, right? You've tried to learn the design review guides. You've got an architect that really embodied the style of the existing home and really tried to bring the characteristics to life and enhance it. So I can see that in those careful components into the design. But when you read the design review guidelines, you get two sides to this conversation in that whole document, i.e., you have the right to achieve a view with your building, but on the other side of that statement, you've got to balance the views and the privacy and the other things that come with it. So there's two sides to almost every single statement in the document. I think as it applies to this house, right, in a lot of times in a lot of areas in town, we try to encourage this kind of pop-up design. But I think the way the extension is on just the one side, I think it is creating some impacts, especially into the rear side of the lot. But I'm not saying that a larger program couldn't be achieved on that second story, given the neighborhood compatibility of the second stories that surround the high school area vicinity. Whether you don't have to go end to end, but looking at your house now, it's kind of the shape of an H on the bottom floor, right? And you're trying to just run it on the one side. I think if you were to look more at the H part and work the middle part back, you probably could achieve more program. I know Board Member Gibbs talked about feasibility, but when it comes to the design review guidelines, cost isn't part of our analysis, right? Yes, it is some part of the equation overall, but in terms of trying to achieve what you want and still achieve your view, I think it's still well afforded in your second level availability. But I don't think in the current layout, it kind of meets that balancing nature of the view impact from the length it extends on the one side. So in short, if you pull it back, I can be much more approvable of the program extending across the front or making bigger sections in the middle part or over the garage.
What part back? Louis, sorry, yes.
So Daniel, I also looking at the aerial from the two lots neighboring, you've got kind of the Mahomes on one side and the property on the other. Their second level doesn't quite extend nearly as far as the one you're proposing. So what I was trying to look at was kind of a reasonable string line. So you kind of keep that opening available for not only the Mahomes, but the other side, but then it affords you the reasonable development kind of beyond that, lack of a better term, string line. I'd like to see something closer to that. Doesn't mean you have to get to that exact line. I'm just saying that's where I'm kind of drawing reasonability within the design at this point of the discussion. And I think that might be a much more balanced equation and maybe achieve some of what Board Member Gannon was discussing. As far as privacy, I know the gentleman spoke about the property downhill. I think in most applications, we'd be looking for landscape in that space, but given that it's being earmarked for an ADU, we don't have any jurisdictions of it. So there will be a structure there. There'll be things there that will provide kind of a privacy just in and of its own. But from a local jurisdiction, we have no control over where they want to put windows or whatever. But analyzing that, the fact that the structure will be there, it'll block a fair amount of what you're concerned about from the view standpoint. So for me, I need a little bit of work on this one, but I think it was a really good attempt and a really good start.
Ms. Tallman?
Daniel got up my picture. Again, this isn't to scale or whatnot, but I was looking at the neighbor to the right and the neighbor to the left and kind of drawing that line. But where you're kind of the H and extending on that lengthy into the rear, that's the part that's more the challenge for me.
Okay, I'll go. So first of all, it sounds like you guys have really great neighbors. And I'm certainly hoping that we can resolve all this over the next couple hearings. I won't be able to approve the project tonight, so I'll just start there. So, and then I'll tell you some of my points, and I think that's why you've come to us tonight. I think if you had tried to do it on the other side, it would have been a kind of a slam dunk, but you're here and this is where you want it, and we'll see if we can make it fit based on what you've got. I agree with Mr. Gibbs on design articulation. I think along the sides you're fine there. I think that the upper coming out so far and blocking the back bedroom of the Mahoney's is something that just can't happen. That has to be looked at very thoroughly. I appreciate you opening up that front bedroom window by removing that large tree that's sort of there now, so they're going to gain view there, but they're definitely going to lose in that middle bedroom. I don't think light is an issue. I don't think breeze and that kind of stuff is an issue. I think it's really visually, it's a big loss. Even though this isn't like a super ceremonial space, it's an active space. I mean, I could feel that just by how the house is set up. So I really feel like that needs to be addressed, that they need to have that, as Ms. Gannon pointed out, that amazing view of the hillside, which hopefully will continually stay pristine for them. So really look at that. Privacy, I think, as Mr. Gibbs and others mentioned, I don't think there's a big privacy issue on the Mahoney side. As he mentioned, opaquing is always nice. Doesn't have to be a heavy-duty opaquing. As far as the group, the gang over there at 480 Paso Robles, I think it's Mr. Amos. I think you're probably going to be okay with what you had shown, Mr. McIntosh, showing an extension of that wall with lattice, kind of keeping your hedging. And I would like, perhaps on condition of approval, or you guys can speak and have this on your next plan, is kind of picking what that's going to be. And then we can, see if that will do it. And I'd like to be able to have a chance to come over and look, because I didn't get a chance to look at that. So I'd like to really see it from your perspective so I can be really clear about that. I think the house is neighborhood compatible. I think your biggest problem is really view equity. And if you can work on that, I think you're really going to be closer, than you are right now. Yeah.
Ms.
So
Coleman?
is your issue the same as Lewis's issue, that it's just the back, the room that's the closest to the backyard needs to open up a little bit?
Yeah, needs to retreat.
Thanks.
Oh, but let me just add to that and keep this in mind. As you hopefully retreat this upper bedroom, that your decking that you're adding stays sort of obscured, because you certainly don't want to, and then you have to deal with that component.
Ms. Tallman?
Okay, well, my first reaction when I came to McIntosh's and saw the plans and took a look at the stakes, it looked very reasonable. It looked to be in line with all the design review guidelines. But then after going to the neighbors next door, especially the master bedroom upstairs, I think that had a sort of in-your-face blockage, even though I know you've offered to put in privacy windows, which I think is a good idea. I think Board Member Coveney's idea about pushing that master bedroom back, and I hate to say this to you, but maybe you have to reduce your walk-in closet. It's a beautiful closet, and I'm jealous. But maybe pushing everything back might alleviate some of that. It's the light and air. It's not so much privacy. It's light and air, and there is a view from their office window. So I think maybe just tweaking that, the master bedroom. I did not get to see the view from 480 Robles with Mr. Amos, but I agree that I don't think you're going to have a problem with the landscaping that's there. And I guess with that, I'll leave it to the rest of the board, but I think just a couple of tweaks and you're almost there. I'd like to say this is a one and done, but I think there might be just a few minor changes.
Do you guys have direction, clear direction? Any clarification?
I think so.
Okay.
If you'd like to say a word. about
Or
what
you don't have to say a
thoughts?
word, just if you have a question, yeah, we're not opening the public hearing. Just
Yeah,
if you have a
I,
question or have a clarification question.
Yeah, well, a question, Christine, you mentioned, you said master bedroom, that's not their master in the corner there by,
No, she was saying your master bedroom.
oh, ours, yeah.
Yeah,
I thought, okay, so.
yeah.
But yeah, a light and air, I mean, if some of the photos we had, I mean, we've been pretty much living in the dark. There's a massive house.
This isn't a discussion. Do you have any questions for us? Any clarification questions? Was our direction,
Well, okay.
so no
Yeah.
further questions? Okay.
Clarification?
When would you like to come back, Mr. Blake?
I think we need a little time. What's the calendar availability?
We're looking at April.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of this depends upon how long it will take to redesign based on the board's direction.
Right.
So we have 2 meetings a month. And so we can slide you in when you're ready. It won't take us long to review the plans, but prepare another staff
And you need
report.
to have
so
it in a month before the hearing?
That would be appropriate, yes.
Yeah.
That would give us adequate
Say
time.
Maybe a May, kind of the end of May or something?
And, and Madam Chair, if I may, does the board want restaking for any redesign elements?
I would appreciate restaking, yes.
Is that a consensus?
Yeah, I don't need restaking, but from their comments, clearly restaking is going to be necessary. Second of all, you need to pick a meeting date and then it'll give you a time to file your plans. So
So Chair, May 22nd would be available.
Okay. Does that work with you guys?
April 22nd?
No, we would like to see the plans in advance of that. So you need to have those ready by the end of April.
Yes,
Maybe preferably sooner.
Yeah, right. Let's give it a shot. Yeah.
Okay, Chair, I'll move item number 5.5 at 607 Short Street to continue to May 22nd, 2025, pending the
I don't think they're
board's
gonna go.
discussion and deliberation.
I'll second that.
I think so.
Maria?
Board Member
I
Coveney.
want to see the poll.
Board Member Coveney? We're taking a vote.
Yeah. But it looks like it's.
Board Member Coveney?
Board Member Coveney.
Yes.
Board Member Gibbs.
yes.
Board Member Weil.
Yes.
Pro Chair Thalman.
Yes.
Chair Gannon.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks,
Thank you,
guys.
guys.
Appreciate it. Thanks for all your comments and help.
See you in May. Next up is 5.6, located at 514 Poplar Street. Board, do we have ex parte? Mr. Gibbs, ex parte? Oh.
This is the.
Oh, yes.
This is Poplar.
Okay, so
Uh,
Mr. Gibbs is.
I'm
going to be-
recused
yes.
because I live within 500 feet.
Ms. Coveney,
Oh.
your ex parte?
I met with the Saunders, I met with Jeannie Bailey, and I met with Steve Coratani.
Ms. Thalman?
And I met with the Saunders, the neighbors next door. I think it was Jeannie and Steve Coratani.
Mr. Weil, ex parte? Is it Poplar? Poplar.
Steve Cortani and the neighbor, what was her name? Jeannie.
And I also met with Jeannie, the neighbor, and Steve Coratani. I spoke with Danny Botros and Mr. and Mrs. Saunders. Okay,
Hi. So item 5.6 is for a project at 514 Poplar Street. The project involves design review and variance. The project site is located near the corner of High Drive and Poplar Street. It's a through lot. It's an R1 zone lot. It currently takes access from Harold Drive. The proposed project is a new single-family home, as well as elevated decks, retaining walls, spa, water feature, new vehicular access, grading, and landscaping. The variance is requested to exceed the driveway slope requirement of 10% within the first 20 feet of the street. During or after staff report posting, staff received one or a couple letters from the public regarding view equity concerns as well as neighborhood compatibility. So staff is recommending that the board conduct the public hearing, consider view equity, and ultimately approve the project if view equity is achieved. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions for staff, for Mr. Latham? No? Okay, you have 5 minutes. Yeah.
Oh,
The green? Yeah.
so I'm Chris Baxter with BDS Architects. It's a pleasure to be here and get to present 514 Poplar to you. A little background on the client. They raised their kids in Laguna and lived 11 years on High Drive, and they're extremely excited to be building and designing a new home in their old neighborhood. When the Saunders purchased this parcel, the existing house was under construction. It's a 1,300 square foot structure, and unfortunately it didn't meet their program goals. We looked at adding a second level to it, doing some additions, and we decided that the best approach would be to start new and to get a more sensitive response to the site. The desired program is kitchen, living, dining, a primary bedroom suite, 2 guest bedrooms for their adult children, office, laundry, and a 2-car garage. And it's very important that the house be efficient for living. So we were trying to accomplish most of the program on one level. The site is extremely challenging. The slope is over 25%. The site is 5,900 square feet. It's a wedge shape, so moving program around is impacted by the shape of that wedge. The current design approach is putting 50% of the program below grade to minimize the impact on the site. Cost is obviously a concern on all projects, and below grade construction is expensive. We have attempted to reduce the amount of excavation that's going to be necessary on the site, and that's part of the reason for the variance. We're just trying to achieve the garage runs deep into the site, and we're trying to raise the garage floor elevation so it's can reduce the amount of excavation, amount of cut. If the variance is not approved, it's very easy for us to just lower the garage floor and have a driveway slope that meets the 10%. Neighbor views across the site has been a major design concern, and it's a reason why the house is so low and horizontal, and we have hipped roofs to reduce the bulk and the scale of the project. The ceiling heights are 8'6", so to push the house lower means to push the building deeper into the ground. The proposed is already much lower than adjacent neighbors, and we don't really want to create a sense of the backyard being in a hole. Currently, the existing home, the backyard, is much lower than the neighbors, and obviously lowering the project further adds expense with excavation, haul off, and shoring. So we've recently heard this week that the neighbor to the east is requesting that we push the house back 5 feet and lower the house 3 feet. We currently don't meet all the program objectives. If you look at our plans, we don't have a dedicated dining room. The master closet, I think, is very reasonable. The office ended up needing to work out just to conserve square footage to be in a guest bedroom. So at this time, we hope to not have to reduce program. And pushing the site back is obviously working against the wedge. So the alternative is to move program up to Harold, and we've been looking at those options. We're concerned that if we add program in other parts of the site, we're impacting other neighbors. The neighbor at 528, or I guess the neighbor at 536 has views across the center of our site as well. Is that it?
In conclusion.
Okay,
You'll
in
get 3 more
conclusion,
minutes.
Scott and Suzanne are incredible people. I love working with them. They build relationships with everybody they meet. And I'm here to work with you and to work with them to give them a beautiful project.
Great. Thank you. Hi, Keith.
Hi.
Mr. Quarantani? Oh, no. I was just saying hi.
Good evening, board members and staff. You know, Louis, I forgot to comment. I really like that sports code. Okay. So there's only 4 of you up here, so this should go a little bit faster, I think. So I want to review the, you already got me up there. Good job, Daniel. I want to go over the design review guidelines again. So first of all, my clients and the neighbors all around love the architecture. Okay, it really is stunning architecture, and they like the Saunders. So we're getting off to a good start there. But let's go to design articulation. Basically, the project is going up higher and it's moving further out to the street. And that's moving the entire program into the view of Danny and Kathy. And they do have an important view corridor there that we'll be looking at. So I'm suggesting that the project be pulled back and it be lowered. That's probably my first suggestion. As far as view equity, I have my 2 slides up there. The one on the left depicts the view from Danny and Kathy's living room. It's a primary ceremonial room, and that is an issue to lose that. The image on the right is their view of Catalina Island and the sunset. And physical features like Catalina and sunsets are treasured, and they're to be protected both by the applicant's architect and by the design review board. As far as neighborhood compatibility, the neighboring project, or pardon me, the neighboring house that I'm representing was built in 1938, and the current project was built in 1950. It's our contention that the home that is being proposed today is violating the agreement that was probably made between the 2 neighbors protecting the view. And that view has been in existence for 75 years. So we'd like to see that view be maintained. As far as the variance, the driveway does require a variance to exceed maximum slope. However, finding number 3 says the granting of the variance should not be detrimental to adjacent properties. I don't believe that the variance can be made. So in closing, I would like the applicant to work with his neighbors and try to resolve the issues, because again, this is a very handsome project. Thank you.
I like that description. Anyone else in the audience? This is 514 Poplar. Hello.
Good evening, board members. My name is Kathy Boutros. My husband and I own 528 Poplar, which is the neighboring property. Janine is currently living there as our tenant. However, we do plan to eventually move to Laguna as a retirement home. We purchased the 528 Poplar primarily for its stunning views, as Mr. Kawati shown. It was unobstructed view of the ocean, Catalina Island, and also of breathtaking sunset views. These views were central to our decision to purchase the home. based on the current plans, and Mr. and Mrs. Saunders' plans are beautiful, but once the story poles went up, we became extremely concerned that their views will be obstructed. We fully support Mr. and Mrs. Saunders' right to build a beautiful home. However, we also kindly ask the board member to consider the impact of door construction on our property's view. We deeply appreciate the work that you do and the balanced needs of all property owners for view equity and rights. We are hopeful that we can come to some sort of equitable solution. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Okay, you have 3 minutes for a rebuttal.
Good. So I guess the biggest issue is the view, and it's definitely a challenging site. Our concern with alternate schemes is we are potentially impacting other neighbors' properties. We really don't want to take away neighbors' view, and we've spent many hours agonizing over this. However, in terms of view equity, the Saunders, they do not have the Catalina view because of their adjacent neighbor. So if this is approved, both 528 and 514 would share the same stunning views of the ocean, the city of Laguna, and the shoreline.
Does that conclude your comments?
That concludes my comments, unless Keith has something.
I don't have anything to add at this point. I think the design is amazing, and I think it steps back, hits all the setbacks. And they're well under their building envelope and what they were allowed to do there. So I think it's a very elegant and understated piece of architecture. I think it suits the Saunders needs. Definitely follows the hillside guidelines, and the materials are wonderful. I think it would fit that neighborhood and build beautifully.
Okay, does that conclude your comments?
Yes,
Oh,
thank you.
okay. Any questions for the applicant? Okay.
Chris, you mentioned there was a way to eliminate the variance for the driveway. So what would that entail?
So our garage floor elevation, if we lower that, then the slope of our driveway becomes less steep. And what that entails is more excavation and haul off. And
Does that pull the house down as
no,
well?
it doesn't change the house.
What are your plate heights on the upper level?
8'6".
8'6". I think
And
I
what are the
recall.
plate heights in the garage? Both of them.
So I'd have to look that up.
My calculations, like 10 feet at the front and almost 12 and a half, 13 in the back. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, or the other way around.
Are you looking at a building section of those?
Yeah, section A106. You got 10 feet kind of in the front part where you've got the little railing, and then it kind of raises up and you're probably at about 12. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay. But if you were to grade down to be in compliance, what does that take? A foot out
In compliance of
the 10% grade, 10% rise?
oh yeah,
for the driveway?
that's we're only taking out maybe 12 inches. Or
Well,
less.
so if that pad came down a foot, you're saying you'd just extend the garage even higher? Like
Yeah,
the
we'd
second
want to
floor.
we'd want to keep the second floor at the same elevation.
Okay.
Because of how deep it is on the backside of the site.
And why are we what's driving the shift from access from Harold to Poplar?
Was my other question.
The existing access is on Harold, correct?
Well, the existing garage is on Harold, yes.
So that's the access or auto access.
It's the auto access, but I think the primary entry was on Poplar.
Okay.
The pedestrian entry exists on
Poplar.
Yeah.
And there won't be like a garage from Harold anymore.
No, that garage goes away.
But the whole site is being torn down and whole new construction.
Yes.
Okay.
Ms. Tallman, do you have?
Well, my other question was also on the other access to the garage. Why did you not use that as a garage still? Is there some reason? Would it have been more, would you have a little more leeway in the design for the house if you had the garage up on the upper level?
I think the reason is it's just a closer connection to the living space, where the upper garage, you have to come down a steep slope. It's just a longer path of travel too.
Okay.
And it's also, it doesn't necessarily meet their program requirements for a garage because it's smaller and there's not rooms for bikes and surfboards and
I understand.
and all that stuff. So making it bigger.
And pushing the whole program back. I see your eaves are quite, what are they, at 5 feet? I think that's the part that's jutting into the view of the neighbor.
Yes.
If it was pushed back or the eaves were reduced, I think that would sort of alleviate the problem for the neighbor. But I'm asking you, you're the
Yeah, I think
architect.
I mean, I think that their request of lowering the building 3 feet and pushing the building back 5, that does preserve their Catalina view from their sofa in a seated position. We have offered to lower the house 12 inches, and they said that that wasn't enough at the time. That we feel preserves their Catalina views in a standing position. And it's hard for me because I haven't been in their house to understand where the photos are taken, but
Right. And pushing the program back, is it the lot configuration that makes it difficult to
just
wedge?
because it's a
Okay,
wedge,
I
we're
understand.
already compressed
I
to
understand.
fit everything on that one level.
Even reducing square footage in some of the rooms.
Yeah, I think we're really at a minimum size for a lot of the rooms, for a primary bedroom, living room and kitchen without a dining.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions, Ms. Coveney? No? Okay. That closes the public hearing. We are now into board comments. Louis, you
I'm
look like
happy to
you're
go-
ready to
oh.
jump the gun.
I'll go first. Shavita, can you pull up A203? I think it'll help with just the articulation of my commentary. Design wise, beautiful. Integrity, beautiful. Neighborhood compatibility works. A lot of the things you guys carefully thought about work. Originally, when I walked up to the site, the access was kind of my biggest question. It's at the end of Poplar, leading into like the stop signs and the yield sign, whatever you want to call it. But really, it only services 18 homes or so that are behind there. So it's really not a thoroughfare. So from an ingress and egress standpoint, lowering the garage to the other level works, and it can be on that side. I think the crux of the problem is really this corner on the bottom right, where you kind of have the building flare out with your pie, whereas the existing structure kind of stays straight to that side, is what's opening up the existing view currently. In combination of either getting your driveway into conformity and lowering it, and working on a component that makes this corner better from a roof line standpoint. I mean, this corner is what needs to lower, not the whole structure, or it needs to be reshaped. You do have some room kind of behind the stairs and behind the bathroom that you could shift a little bit of program on this second level. If work on that, like, I can be really supportive of it. The view impact is not the most egregious, but it is somewhat significant, as it is the view that's looking down the street, down through the front, through the side yard, towards Catalina, and kind of some significant views. So it gets my sensitivity when it comes to that, because I think there are design components that can be just tweaked and fixed that achieve your program that you want, but it really respects the historical nature of the views that exist. The front decking is a little large, but as you work on that corner, maybe try to make sure that your angles of that decking kind of work and preserve some of the privacy as it stretches out. I can be supportive of it because again, that's you trying to achieve your view on that front side. Fix those two things, work on the third one. I think we're right there for me. So other than that, I'm good.
Ms.
Thank you.
Coveney?
Thank you, Mr. Wheel. I concur with my colleague. That was pretty much what I was going to say. I don't have a big problem with the height. I just have a problem with that front height where that corner is. It's obvious by the pictures, and if you go stand or sit in the neighbors, you will see that that is blocking a really primary view for them. So if you can get rid of that corner, I don't know how, I mean, the existing house seems to be in a good place with that corner. I don't know if you steal a little of that, how much would it would, continue to impede. But right now what you have is just too much. But again, I don't think height's a big deal. I'm going to kind of lean on my colleagues here as far as the variance. I'm not a big variance aficionado, so I'm going to lean on you guys for that a bit. That's really my big thing. And then if that's an adjustment at ease, once you make that adjustment, keep in mind that large decking, that's now that you're back, that now your deck's sticking out, and they're seeing that, because it feels now like the deck's somewhat obscured from the neighbor's view because of the corner of that bedroom. I might not be looking at your plans right, but I just think they want to now have a clear window and a deck. That might be a concern from a privacy perspective on the next round. So am I saying that right? And that's really, and then the other thing is there's a hedge presently that I know is a dead hedge at some point, and with your plans and maybe in the next go round, you make a clear commitment on if that hedge is required and what that height should be maintained at. I know you guys will be good about keeping it managed, but it would be good to have that in the records. I get why your garage is where it is, and it's really beautiful, by the way. I really love this house. It's so nice to see one like this. Thank you. It's handsome.
Ms. Thalman?
Sure, I think we're all pretty much on the same wavelength here. I really can't make the finding for the variance for the driveway, especially when you mentioned it's a fairly easy fix. So I'd like to see that go away. And as Board Member Weil mentioned, that right corner, that just seems to be the issue for the neighbor. I agree that Catalina views are important, and especially if that's from only that particular window in the house. So I think if you can tweak those two things, at least from my perspective, I could support the project if I'm here. I have 2 more meetings, so.
Already getting separation anxiety. I pretty much share the same across the board. Access, I agree with Mr. Wiles. It just makes sense to have access off Poplar instead of up the street. I know as far as the use of a garage up top, it just doesn't make sense to have it up there and have to walk downstairs and to go into your house and groceries and if it's raining. So access is fine down there. I agree. I don't support the variance as well, especially when there's another option. And that option will improve to some degree the view by giving that 1 foot drop. Then the eaves, I think.
So that's two different things.
But to remove the variance, you have to lower the garage, right?
But that doesn't change the
It
height of the
doesn't
roof.
change the 1 foot.
Just dig out.
Okay.
We're just digging more.
Okay, I misunderstood.
Board game.
Yes.
It could change the second level's height. They are requesting that it doesn't.
Oh,
The board
okay.
has the authority to say that your second level could come down too. But they are suggesting that it's more complicated in their design.
And
Well,
we can lower the roof without changing the garage floor height.
Okay. Well, 8'6" is pretty modest.
Well, no, we can lower our finished floor height of our main level, and we've offered to do that 12 inches.
Okay.
Without addressing the variance.
Without
I don't think for
changing the
me,
depth of our excavation.
right. And so I feel like the pushing back the building would mediate the view for the neighbor. I agree that, was it Ms. Coveney that you said? Yeah. I don't know that it's so much of a height issue. It's as much as it's the way that you guys are applying to push the program forward to the street. The eaves might be able to help a little bit with that. 5-foot eaves, quite large. They're some of the largest that we've seen. So maybe take a look, consider bringing those back to 2 or 3 feet. Like Mr. Cortani said, this is a very handsome project, and it's going to look phenomenal on that corner. And then, yeah, not to repeat others, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Do you have any clarification questions?
Can I make a comment?
Do you have any questions?
Well,
Yeah.
okay, the question is, if pulling that corner back doesn't give them a Catalina view, does that mean we would not get approval at the next?
You need to protect that view, get that Catalina view. The house that's currently there does it phenomenally well. And I think that house built in 1950 took that into consideration, that view. So yes, that Catalina view in Laguna Beach. So the way that the design review criteria is designed or written, you might have a building envelope, but what sets us apart from Corona Del Mar is that you don't get to necessarily build to that envelope. There's nooks and crannies and considerations here and there that we're trying to blend with property rights. And so, but you can't create a view by taking someone else's view.
But can I expand on that,
Yes,
Chair Gannon?
yes, please.
Also, it's a view equity. It's not, you don't get to preserve your whole view. So we kind of just, I'm neither confirming or denying how we will vote in the future, but I'm just saying that you have to find that balance. Like Chair Gannon said, you can't get your view and steal their view, so you have to find a compromise. Obviously, Catalina is precious, so we kind of look at that. But you have to find a balance.
I have faith in you. All right.
How soon would you like to come back, or do you think you can make these changes?
The end of April.
End of April, which would probably mean the application or the submittals are due probably closer to the end of March.
Yeah.
Okay. End of April, what's that meeting? April 22nd,
That should be April 27th,
27th.
24th, April 10th and
Just
April
some
24th.
clarification from staff, or for staff. Would you like the project restaked, right? Correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so motion to continue item number 5.6 at 514 Poplar Street to April 24th. Design review meeting 2025.
A second.
Board Member Coveney,
Yes.
Board Member Gibbs, Board Member Weil,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Thalman,
Yes.
Chair Gannon.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. Do you mind if we take a 10-minute break?
This
for
is it.
last one?
This is the last.
Yes.
Break and
Okay, so it's 7:04. We'll be back at 7:15. applicant team for 167 Chiquita Street, please come to the desk. Do we have ex parte?
I went by the site, I spoke with the applicant, and I went to the neighbor, Ann Earhart.
I met with the applicant team, including the owners, and I met with Ann Earhart.
And I visited the site and spoke with Pam and Peter Polson and the architect Liz Howe.
Visited the site and spoke with Larry Noakes.
I also spoke with Larry Noakes and visited the site with the applicant team.
Good evening, Chair and members of the board. Item 5.7 is a design review and coastal development permit for 167 Chiquita Street. As the board may remember, this project was originally heard at the August 22nd and December 12th, 2024 DRB hearings, and the applicant was provided direction to redesign the home to reduce the appearance of mass, particularly along the street elevation, provide further articulation with materials, add landscaping to the street-facing elevation, reduce lighting and glazing for the project. In response, the applicant has lowered the height from 2 feet 11 to 2 feet 11 inches under the allowable height and 7 inches below the existing ridge line. The applicant has also reduced the square footage of the second story by 150 square feet and the balconies by 122 square feet. Ceiling height has been reduced to 10 feet, and they've eliminated the chimney from the master bedroom. They've provided additional setbacks along the eastern edge, reduced the glazing, removed all landscaping lighting, and reduced the number of exterior light fixtures by 75%. All hardscape has been replaced with permeable pavers, and a covered entry and pitched roof has been added along the street elevation. Revised landscaping with an additional tree and hedges are proposed in the front yard, and planters have been added to the balcony for privacy. Staff has analyzed the applicant's requests with respect to the city's development standards and the board's previous direction and determined that the project conforms to the zoning code, general plan policies, and design review guidelines. Additionally, staff believes the CDP findings for the project can be made. Staff recommends that the board conduct a public hearing and adopt the resolution approving the project and finding said action exempt from CEQA. Staff has received correspondence from neighbors regarding concerns about neighborhood compatibility, mass and scale, and view equity. The board should consider whether these affect the project's ability to meet the design review criteria. That concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions, as is the project and their applicant team.
That was a handsome presentation. Thank you. Yeah. Any questions for staff? No? Okay. You have 5 minutes.
Good evening. I'm Liz Howell, Skyview Designs. Thank you, Shavita, for that presentation. Thank you, design board members, for all your time. Thank you for coming to the site and meeting with us and reviewing the project and seeing the new story poles. It's appreciated. Our project meets all zoning codes. We are not asking for any variances. We are under the allowable height and square footage. We have reduced the square footage to 3,614 square feet. We're allowed by code 4,740. We've lowered the height of the building approximately 3 feet. We've added more architectural articulation by varying setbacks and adding more stone. We increased the setbacks. We changed one large multi-slide door to 2 doors with a stone wall between. We reduced glazing, and the windows will have the VT glass. We reduced the exterior light fixtures and reduced impervious surfaces, added a dwarf magnolia tree at the corner so it softens the streetscape when you're driving down Chiquita. I hope you've all seen the new story poles and notice how they line up with all the other homes on the street, and the new lower roof is lower than the existing ridge. And then we're talking about some of the your other concerns. And so Tom, height, I know, is one of your major concerns. So we removed the parapet and chimneys and lowered it 3 feet. And also the bedroom and bathroom in the back corner next to the neighbor at, I had it here, 167 Chiquita. We now have a 6-foot 6-inch setback there to give the neighbor a little more room and us a little more privacy and room. And the balconies have the planters, which also help with the privacy for both. Lewis, the dwarf tree we added, and the obscure glazing to the windows. MJ, we removed the barbecue in the court. We increased the setbacks for the balcony. So at the front of the house, we've softened it because the eaves have come back to 2 feet from 4 feet. The balcony now only projects 2 feet instead of 4 feet. And in the corner, we moved back the bathroom and shower and increased the setback. So it just softens that whole corner in the front of the house. And Jessica, we softened the appearance of the street view and we reduced the glazing. And I appreciate all your comments. And Christine, thank you for all your support at the last meeting. We really appreciate it. And that will conclude our presentation. I didn't show the pictures. Okay, so this is a picture in our presentation. We saw the elevations, and this shows different street views. And of course, the Google view, the red dot is Chiquita. And as you can see along the alleyway, we are proposing the home to be set back more than any other house or commercial building on the street. A lot of the buildings on the alley are straight up and down to the setback with balconies that protrude, and they're much closer to the alley. You can also see by the line going up and down Chiquita, we line up with or are behind other buildings on the street. And those are just different views. And there's a new development down the alley that is larger than ours. And I think that's another reason that we are compatible with the neighborhood.
Does that conclude your comments?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. At this time, any member of the public wish to speak on this project? Now's your time. How many show of hands do we have for this project? This is 167 Chiquita Street. Okay, comments will be limited to 2 minutes each. First speaker.
Can I have 3 minutes? I haven't spoken before,
You haven't spoken before?
never.
But
Not for this issue.
Hold on, sir.
yeah, so,
Yes.
so Chair, we have to set the time limit. 2 minutes is reasonable, 3 minutes is reasonable, but we can't weigh each
No,
speaker.
that-
So, yeah.
Because there's a lot of you, board, do we want 2 minutes?
Well,
2 minutes? Okay, 2 minutes. The board chooses 2 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to start. My name is Pat Wiseman. I live at 170 Chiquita Street. My wife and I, directly across the street from this project. We've been there since 1987, almost 38 years. Okay, I've got 2 issues with this thing. One is the size. It's too big. It's still too big. It should be 300 square feet smaller or more. The other issue is the applicants have used trickery and deception to convey to this board that they have the support of the neighbors. They do not have the support of any of the neighbors. The trickery is that before the story polls went up, Pamela came by and got the neighbors to sign letters supporting them. Being good neighbors, we signed the letter because we wanted this project to go well for them. When the story polls came up, we realized that what we had signed was for a much bigger house than what we realized. But she's using those letters to indicate that she has support from the neighbors. That is not true. The other thing is that during the first 2 board meetings, there was about 5 people that came up here supporting the project. They were posing as if they were Chiquita Street neighbors. They were not Chiquita Street neighbors. I have lived there. I live across the street. I watch TV, the windows, I can see what comes there. I have never seen these people except for at the DRB meetings. They do not park their cars on Chiquita Street. They do not walk their dogs on Chiquita Street. They don't even come over to Chiquita Street to visit Peter and Pamela. Their opinions really have no place in this meeting because this house does not affect where they live, just where we live. So basically, I think that 1 or 2 things should happen. Either it should be rejected because they use deception, and it's still way too big. And the other th38 is.
In conclusion, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's 3,600 square feet. The biggest thing that's been built there in the last 38 years is 2,800 square feet. This is 800 square feet bigger. So they should either be rejected or told to come back for a fourth meeting, 300 square feet smaller. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's Mr. Wiseman. Thank you, Mr. Wiseman. Next speaker, please. If you guys don't mind coming towards the front and sitting in the chair to the side.
Good evening. My name is Darrell Lynn Cornelison, and I live in North Laguna, and we've lived there for 35 years. I want to tell you a little story about Peter and Pamela. They're sitting right here, and they want approval so that they can build the house of their dreams. They love Laguna, so they bought a house in North Laguna that was older, but they love the location. They had a view of the hills and the mountain homes up to beyond the PCH, and that was until a tall two-story commercial modern building was built on PCH, despite their disapproval. As their house aged and needed lots of repairs, they decided to design a house that met all of their desires and their needs. The residential neighborhood consists of larger homes in many different architectural designs and styles. They got all the approvals needed for the home, no variances were required. And then their home design came before you, the Design Review Board. Now, this is the third design board meeting, and at each of the previous meetings, suggestions were given, but no approval. Peter and Pamela have redesigned their home to meet the suggestions 2 different times, and now their home is substantially smaller and not as tall, and although that disappoints them somewhat, they still want your approval. I believe they deserve to build their home as redesigned. It's a beautiful home, and I plead for your approval so Peter and Pamela can construct the home, their new home in Laguna. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, yes, come all the way. If there's, as you guys, can you please get in line, sit in the chairs? No, you can sit in the chairs. Just line up in the chairs. Well, no, if you're next speaker, you can speak come to the podium, but the next speaker, please be sitting in the chair behind you. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Inga Ban, and I am a neighbor. I have owned the property at 1157 North Coast Highway since 1978. So I'm probably one of the oldest neighbors in the neighborhood. I object the project because I feel it's way too massive in its design. None of the homes on Chiquita Street, they are usually 2,500 square feet. I think it's just too massive. And also from my balcony, the upstairs balcony, my ocean view will be taken. And it would have an economic impact on me because I can ask for not as much rent. And the current tenant has lived there 11 plus years. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
My name is Larry Laird. I've lived here in Laguna Beach for 50 years or more. General contractor and residential designer. I've seen the project. I think the design from the beginning has been just really very good, very nice. They have twice lowered the house and moved it back to try to comply with concerns. I think any more pressure pushing it down or back is only going to exacerbate the size of the 3-story commercial building that's next door to them. This makes a nice transition to the rest of the neighborhood. There are several other houses in the neighborhood that are this size and bigger. It is not a cottage, but there are no, I mean, there are cottages, other areas around the neighborhood there, but there's also contemporary houses that look very much like this one. I think they've done their due diligence. It's time to approve the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
First, I'd like to thank the board for allowing me to speak today. My name is Connie Sanchez. I've lived here in Laguna Beach for 50 years. When this project was first presented to the board, it fell within the strict requirements of the city of Laguna Beach. In fact, it was less than the maximum allowable footage for the lot, as evidenced by not one variance requested that would exceed the city requirements. At the initial and second meeting, the Design Review Board made a series of recommendations to change and downside the original plan, which were complied with by the applicants. The recommended changes to the original plan have been subjective in nature, and none were of technical corrections to that original plan, which from the beginning was in total compliance with the city requirements for that lot. Therefore, recommend this project be approved. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, my name is Leslie Laird, and I've been here 14-ish years. I'm short and sweet. Not me, what I'm going to say. I do. Okay. I do want to say that I did go through the whole neighborhood last week, and I was shocked at the scope of some of the houses, seeing as that seemed to be a major block for them, is that everyone kept saying it's too tall, it's too big, too wide, too close here or over there. And I was also very surprised at how much their renderings match the commercial building next to them and other homes in there. I did not notice that many cottages. Now, I know you guys have all been there too, so maybe you did notice a bunch of them. I was really surprised and taken aback by the size of, there's a new project going in. It's gigantic down the street. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Seal Sharman, and I'd like to thank all of you for the work that you do to keep Laguna beautiful. I really appreciate it. I've been here, like others, over 50 years, and we moved from Tahiti Avenue after we were burned out in the fire to the tree streets. And the tree streets, I understand, are highly desirable. And if you walk around there, as you heard earlier tonight, it's a very eclectic neighborhood. There are Spanish-style houses, 2 stories. There are more contemporary apartment buildings and duplexes that look much more modern. And then there are still a few little original cottages that frankly could use a little bit of upgrade, but we won't go there tonight. I think Pam and Peter have worked very hard to meet your recommendations, and they've really tried to downscale the size and the setbacks. So I would recommend that you approve. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker. Any other speakers? Any other speakers? Yeah.
Hello, my name's Bob Butner. Shavita, could you bring up Exhibit 1? First of all, I want to clarify the building was dropped 20 inches, not 2 feet 11. I'm not going to spend my time to prove the math. You want me to do it later, contact me. Could you pull up Exhibit 1, please? Okay. Exhibit 1 is a view from an office at 1191 North Cause Highway. It was brought to my attention, the person who used this office for the past 13 years, that there is an ocean view there now, and there was much more but the view has been lessened year by year by the growth of giant birds of paradise and banana trees on the applicant's property that they have let grow to close to 30 feet high. This caused Anne to forget that she even had an ocean view. Can we get that up? Well, if we ever get it, you'll see, I think you guys have gotten copies, and you can see there's a horizon line. And you can also see there's a huge amount of vegetation. And you can see, there you go. So the yellow line is ocean horizon. The dotted white line is the profiles of buildings beyond. The red is the outline of their building. The shade is that which is temporarily blocked, but if you approve this project, it's forever going to be blocked. Could you please go to Exhibit 2? No, it should scroll down. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, that's Exhibit 3. Exhibit 2, that's Anne's view. And you can see there used to be a broad ocean view there, and now it doesn't exist, but it'll be forever gone if this is built as designed. The next one, please. Yeah, you can see there a close up through the foliage. You can see the ocean peeking through those little holes there. I mean, there is an ocean view there. We've forgotten about it because it's slowly gone away. Could you give me the last one, please? Oh, I'm sorry, Inga Buns, that's her view that we heard in the last hearing, there was no ocean view there. Now this one here, if you look at the before, the comparisons between the second and third submittals, you can see there was no articulation move back. The deck went back 2 feet, a little bit of glazing change, nothing major, no difference in mass and scale. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, all. I'd like to be here saying that the applicants have responded to the board's previous comments and suggestions. At the second hearing, members still have had issues with mass, scale, and verticality. But according to our calculations, at this point, the house has only been reduced by less than 6%, 208 square feet, which to me is not a significant amount. It was pointed out that understandably, projects try to maximize their square footage on lots, but you have one maximized, then the other one, next one maximized, then the next one, and the whole neighborhood is different. I think we live in Laguna because we like the character of our neighborhoods as being unlike some of the surrounding communities. And this project looks more like my office building than the cottages on this street. I'm sorry to have brought this in late, but in mid-December, I took a hard look at these massive bird of paradise next to the applicant's garage. And as Bob has pointed out, I have an ocean view behind them. They're at least 27 feet high and almost as wide. Mr. Buettner's presentation showed you what effect those would have on me. I would lose what little ocean view that I have. I have asked both the applicants and the architect to cut those down so we could see really what was there. I asked in mid-December and have had no reply from them, and the birds of paradise still stand. And as you saw in the presentation, the story poles are going through them. So plants are not permanent, but a building is. And, I don't want to lose my 3 minutes. I'm an actual neighbor. There's a lot of people here who are not.
This is the third meeting, Mrs. Earhart.
I would like to see this project come to fruition, given the flapping tarps that I've been looking at literally for years. We're never contacted by the applicants prior to the project, and they have not replied to letters that we've sent. We've offered what we consider to be a win-win solution, but have heard nothing back.
In conclusion,
Light and
the last
air-
meeting you took 4 minutes. So in conclusion,
Light and air and
in
equity.
conclusion, in conclusion,
This conclusion.
in conclusion.
In conclusion, the
Yes.
light, air, and view equities have not changed. With exceedingly
Mr.
small
Patrick Dunnigan,
changes.
what do I do here? Please give guidance, council.
Please, ma'am, can you please wrap it up? You've
I
you've gone
have
well
two-
over
I have
3
two
minutes.
more
You've already
sentences.
gone over now, and now 3 minutes.
In
With the
conclusion,
exceedingly small changes that have made per the board's requests and neighbors' concerns, I am sorry, but will ask that you deny this project. Thank you.
thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is Mia Davidson, and I live at 122 Chiquita. I also speak for Benita Solo, who lives at 109 Chiquita, who cannot be here tonight. I've known Peter and Pamela a long time, almost 2 decades. I consider them friends, and I've entertained them in my home. I did not sign their petition last year, not because I anticipated objecting to the project, but because I could not conceive that anything they would consider building would have any effect on me. Basically, on the principle, if it doesn't affect me, keep out of it. I know several neighbors who signed the petition who now have regret, but think it's too late to do anything about it. I've not been bullied by anyone that, as has been suggested in writing to you guys. In addition, as a longtime resident in watching these proceedings online, it appears that a significant portion of the supporters of this project are not even Chiquita Street neighbors. I'm confused. Is this a personality contest? My concerns have been mass and scale of the project from the street since the first hearing, and I can see nothing in the plans that address this concern significantly. Referencing the latest staff report, lowering the top of the project by 7 inches from the existing slope peak of the roof means nothing. More meaningfully, one could say that the front facade of the proposed project is 10 or more feet higher than the existing home. Direction from both previous hearings was to reduce the appearance. That makes me nervous. Reduce
No,
the
it's
appearance of
jarring.
mass and scale of the project along the street elevation from the existing staking. Very little has been achieved in that direction. It's still not a low-profile structure as required by LU Policy 3.10. One additional concern is the short-sighted nature of using vegetation to mitigate some of the blockiness of the structure. This will be a short-term solution to a long-term problem and should not be a factor in approving this project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name's Shay Watson, and I live at 157 Chiquita, directly next door to 167. I'm just here to say that we still don't agree with the massing towards the front of the property, and that while there was documents that were kind of signed earlier that we felt very deceived by, we are not in support of this project, and we stand with our neighbors on Chiquita Street and the surrounding neighbors. And I think they've stated it better than I can, and you've heard it, so I'll just let it lie.
Can I ask you a quick question? If I'm
Yes.
facing the applicant's property, are you to the right? Was your daughter here in the past?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please. Mr. Noakes, you're up.
Then there's me, maybe. I'm Larry Noakes, and I'm working with Ann Earhart and those opposing this project. It's interesting to see the people who came up. I know the applicants have a lot of friends, and they're here showing their support, but they are not neighbors for the most part. Pat spoke. He lives across the street. Inga spoke. She lives next door. Mia, Shay, Ann, Bob, they're all there in the neighborhood. And the other people who spoke live in Laguna, longtime Laguna. But this project impacts the neighbors and the people who live adjacent to it. And this is still a property that is on a street that is populated by cottage-style houses. That hasn't changed since the last meeting. It's also basically a building that goes from setback to setback, from front to rear. It's still got the same basic amount of program. It hasn't been appreciably reduced in height. It still has the same negative impacts on Ann's building as it always did. Ann still has her building that was forced by design review down way below the allowable building height, the upper theoretical limit, which we all know in Laguna is a myth, and I don't know why we have it, but we do. The character of this kind of reminded me of the discussion we had last meeting about Hawthorne and how the neighborhood for Ann's commercial building is basically Pacific Coast Highway, just like on the Hawthorne project, it was Cypress Street. And this neighborhood where this property is Chiquita Street. And you go down Chiquita Street and you see a very distinct type of house. This ain't it. It's a nice looking design, but we would suggest that we disagree that view equity has been achieved, and we disagree that the direction by the board has been.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Noakes. Any other comments? Any other speakers? No? Any questions to the applicant? Nope. Oh, 3 minutes for rebuttal.
So before we submitted plans per the city's guidance for plan submission, they did early neighborhood communication, and they took around plans to all the neighbors, and there was no trickery involved, and they let them study as long as they want to. I think, Pat, you were with for 2 hours, Pat? So that's why they did it before the story polls. We were mindful of the neighbors because we're not right up against the alley like most of the houses or buildings on the street. Inga's building, the balconies protrude, further into the setback of the alley. We are much further away. We're 10 to 12 feet from the alley within 90% of the building. The only part close is the foyer. We've moved back the second story to give everybody more privacy and more light and air. We've added more articulation. We've tried to comply with all of the suggestions, and we've articulated it more from the front corner. We added the tree, more curb appeal. We lowered it 3 feet. I can't believe I talked Pamela into that. And there's other, like the property right down the alleyway. They have 9'6" and 10'6", and you guys just approved them recently, and it's much larger home, and you can see it from the front corner of their property. And then with Ann's request, she keeps on saying it's too large, but as you can see from my satellite picture, she maximized her lot. So and she has 10-foot to 15-foot ceilings in her building, and she has high headers for all the windows, but she thinks it shouldn't matter that she has what we have, a lot less lot coverage, height, plate height, window height, and we aren't as close to the alley. And we are mindful with the other neighbor with the courtyard. So we gave everybody a little light and air and privacy in that way. And I think that's the end of my rebuttal. Do you have anything to say?
When you think about the concept of view equity, we had a beautiful view of the goats grazing on the hillside. Now we have a view of a wall. So that view across the alleyway has completely obliterated any view that we ever had of the hillside.
Does that conclude your comments?
Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Any questions to the applicant? No? No questions, Mr. Weil? Okay, we'll go into board comment. Ms. Shavita, do you have the photos I presented to you? So overall, I feel like this is the perfect blend between commercial and going into the residential. And Mr. Weil had, the last meeting had given the suggestion of planting a dwarf tree of some kind. Do you recall? Yeah, whatever the dwarf, and that's further softens when you turn onto Chiquita, softens the presence of there being a building there and going into that residential. So I think it's the perfect blend, and it meets the pattern of development. So this is 1 block away to the south, to the south. This is the alleyway, the shared alleyway, the neighbor directly behind the building. You can see it's a 2-foot wall, straight up and down, zero articulation. Next slide, please. And then the residential properties across the street overlook that building, and then and then you can see those residential buildings look over the opening between the two properties, the applicant's property and the property in the rear. If you notice, Ann's property is further tucked into the, past the property line, so there's bigger clearance. The alleyway, this is the alleyway, the south of Chiquita. 1 block. This is the shared block. So that's, La Brea. This is the backyard. If you were in the backyard.
I just want to get my bearings.
Oh, right.
Are their house.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
please.
And then, so next slide, please. So as you can see, it meets the pattern of development. It'll be similar to Ann's house or Ann's commercial building where it's tucked off of the alley. This applicant will also have it tucked off of the alley, more so than the 2 residential buildings. And then, do I have another slide? Yeah, you can see I outlined in red Ann's building. So there's a big difference, a big gap. So there's no light and air intrusion. The first meeting, I felt that standing in those buildings and the offices that view equity had been achieved. Now that the building's lower, I stand by that. And let's see. So it meets a pattern of development, view equity been achieved the first time around, 0 privacy issues, access, the alley access makes sense as opposed to bringing the garage to the front. The landscape is adequate, removing those palm trees, banana trees, whatever they're called, and then adding the dwarf tree in the front softens that opening, the front facade. And also the way that you are able to articulate that upper stairs or the upper floor, it further softens when you turn onto Chiquita. It further meshes well between commercial and residential. I thought your articulation was on point. You're the most articulated property that's in that area. There are other, when I walk the street, there are other, they're dated, but there are other modern properties that are similar, just they look more dated. And to your point earlier, we did, this board approved 5-0, the project 1 block north. And that was also tucked up to a residential / commercial property. So it was a mixed use property with the Desai family. Do you remember that? So those are my comments. I can support this project. Thank you for taking our direction.
You want to go?
I can go next. Okay. Well, first off, thank you for making the changes. You've addressed every single one of the board's concerns that were raised, and I appreciate you going through each of those concerns. It's a laundry list of changes that have taken over the past 3 hearings. As far as mass and scale, we keep, someone mentioned reduce it by 300 square feet. It could still look massive if it was designed improperly. It's all about design. It's not about square footage. And that creates the look of mass and scale. And I think we get caught up in square footage as opposed to design. The site coverage, just from what I've seen on the plans, it went from 35 to 38%, 3%, a 3% increase, which is to me, insignificant from a property standpoint. View equity, I think, has been achieved. That was proven today. I don't see a privacy issue. As far as neighborhood compatibility, I agree with Chair Gannon that it's a great transition design. There are cottages on that property, but there's also equally contemporary design as well. So this particular design it's a natural transition to the rest of the neighborhood. So as far as the bird of paradise, I believe that'll all go away anyway. So I can approve the project tonight. I think you've addressed all the board's concerns. I think it meets the design review guidelines, and I'm happy to support it tonight.
Mr. Weil?
Okay. Oh,
No, no, Miss.
okay. I'll go quickly. I cannot support the project tonight. I'm just going to start with, I always start with the lead because it just puts everybody sort of in the right headspace. And here's why. I don't think you listened to the board's comments, at least my comments, and I believe I won't speak for Mr. Gibbs, but I think mass and scale you did not address. I think that to Christine's point, it isn't about square footage. It's about the way the house is processed and shifted and built and it layers. All the houses on Chiquita are all set back a little more, some not, but they all have this articulation in front that, like I said last time, really eases you into the property. I feel like the pictures that Ms. Gannon showed, that all those houses, I believe, or all that you showed on the north side were all in the alleyway, were all R2s and along PCH, not necessarily in the area. So that to me is not compatible. I think the styles there, I think the materials are fine, but I just think this, and this is what's always been bothering me, is this whole, because I would love to have you guys build your home. I want you to build this, but it just is, something's not right when I look at it in the context of this neighborhood. I love contemporary homes. I have no problem with contemporary looking homes. This just is overall too big. I think last time I told you, it's just, you took the crust off the bread and I needed more. So I feel like to get to the third hearing and we haven't even done much there is surprising, but that's where we are. As far as like people had talked about things like likability of the applicants, that doesn't affect our decisions, just so you know. And whether people are bullies or not doesn't affect our decisions. I know it helps you to air it and feel good, but it's not part of our design criteria. As far as compliance, like everything was approved through zoning and planning and it fit within the envelope. And you essentially are using the full scope of the envelope. That's why we're here, is because otherwise people could just drop a box into every space, taking over every square foot, and you would have no Laguna Beach. So it's not specific to cottages. It's all the different homes and all the uniqueness to that neighborhood. So mass and scale, I don't believe has been achieved. Neighbor compatibility, the design style is fine. It just needs to work on the mass and scale component. Your access with the alley access to the home makes sense. View equity. So, the trees not there, didn't notice was there. There is a view impact. I don't think you need to lower anything. I think you should have your heights where you have them. I think, again, if the house could just be and give them a touch of a peekaboo, it's something I would like you to consider and look at and see what you can garner back, because those darn birds of paradise, they should be outlawed in Laguna. I'm going to work on. That'll be my next thing I'm going to work on. Why are you laughing at me? So anyway, I think that ultimately there was a peekaboo view, to your point, Chair Gannon, you're always talking from a real estate perspective about peekaboos. And I also think that Ann's property that I think people have been referencing as far as being large and commercial, it's really articulated well. And even though she had to drop her roof heights or her ceiling plate heights, she still has a substantial one in her office, so she didn't suffer too much. But what's nice about that building is it sort of eases into that corner, and then you drop this here, and then we start easing in to these other homes down the street that are less massive. So landscaping's great. Love that you removed some of that lighting. It's stunning that you had that much. I had never really studied it. So glad that that's gone. And yeah, that's it.
I have a question for you. Are you saying that this is not articulation?
It is articulation, but there's something about the length.
Turn your mic on. Your mic has to be on.
Yeah. It's that. What? Sorry, got it. It's the span being so, you're getting an angle there when you look at it from, in the plan view.
So I'm showing the rendering.
Yeah, when you look at it in the plan view, why am I getting you on camera?
So is your,
It's much, look at, it's just,
I don't understand how it could be more articulated.
I'm not an architect. I don't know either.
Okay, so look at all the articulation up there. She has the plans.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think she
Let's
was
go with-
talking mass and scale.
Mass and scale,
And
but so it's just-
neighborhood compatible.
If you got rid of
Well,
this
she said
section and
neighborhood
that stepped
compatibility
up
was
and-
met.
Yeah, but if this was
Yeah.
back and then you stepped up and then you had a courtyard in the middle and then it stepped up and, so it's, I don't know. I'm not an architect. I just don't see anything else like this on the street. And I don't know what the square footage of the other homes are on the street. They all
Because
seem
they don't have an
pretty
alley.
large.
They don't have an alley, that's why. Okay, Mr. Gibbs.
All right. Unfortunately, I think that Lewis is going to break the tie here. Let me give I want to really focus on why I cannot support the project. At the first hearing, I think the board made it clear, and I made it clear, that it was, the mass and scale was just too much for that neighborhood. And I expressed my view that the neighbor compatibility is not the commercial on the other side of the alley. It is Chiquita going from the alley down to Cliff. My view hasn't changed in that regard. The direction was to reduce mass and scale and height. I'll talk about height at the end of my comments. At the second hearing, you presented a project that did not make a significant reduction in mass and scale. I went back and listened to several of our comments on the board, including mine. And I made it very clear that the setback to setback two-story mass, which is the appearance of the building, is just not neighborhood compatible. And I suggested that the second story be pulled back. And I think other board members did too. That wasn't done. The square footage, I agree with Board Member Thalman that we don't look at square footage alone. But the immaterial reduction in square footage through the three hearings, just as a manifestation that there was no, in my view, serious attempt to reduce the mass and scale of this building. It's a block house. Now, I agree with Chair, it's well articulated, and the design in some other location would be beautiful. I went back to the neighborhood again because I knew this is your third hearing. And I looked and I just can't say that that house is compatible. There's no other house like it on that street, which is essentially a block house, setback to setback. You have a courtyard you can't see from the street, but it's on the inside. But from all appearances from the outside, this is a big block house. So for that reason, I think it's out of character. It's not neighborhood compatible for the reason it just has too much appearance of mass and scale. That was the view I gave at the first hearing, the second hearing. And if you compare, in fact, you didn't pull back the second story at all. You pull back the deck a little bit. Between the second and third hearing?
Yeah.
The bathroom was made smaller and the shower made smaller and the walk-in closet made smaller. So we were able to bring back that corner of the front of the house.
Okay, let me just, I compared, and it may have been pulled back a little bit from the renderings. It didn't look like it was pulled back at all. So if it was pulled back, to me, it didn't deal with the substantive problem I had at the second hearing. I mean, I would love to approve this house. This is your third hearing. It just did not come back. It did not meet the direction, at least my direction, and so I can't in good conscience support it. With respect to the height, I don't know if this is going to make a difference. You may get approved tonight. If you don't, you're kind of back to the drawing board, but it's something to consider. The height, I think you've come close. And probably if it was height alone, I would have approved it. I wanted to see it come down more. You've kept the plate height at, if I'm correct, it's 9.5. No, it's 10 at the second story. That's a high plate height for the community. I mean, we generally see 9.5, 9, and we just had one today at 8.5. Where you're having some impacts on views and, light and air, it's nicer to have come lower. But like I say, you lowered it another foot, and I appreciate that. I probably would have approved it. My issue is mass and scale and neighborhood compatibility.
Mr. Weil?
Well, guys, thanks.
You wanted to go last.
This project's been through a lot, and I know it's been hard on the neighbors and the applicant and all parties involved. And I do appreciate everybody's attempts to try to just work towards a buildable project. With that said, I think there's been, from the first hearing till now, there's been a lot of changes and a lot of concessions. But I think in Board Member Gibbs' description, the concessions have come in baby steps here and here. And it has been in totality a lot, but I think the board was looking for more, kind of some significant improvements to some of these corners or these angles, especially when it affects the mass and scale and some elements of the view that have been there. And now I think there's a lot of things that you've worked towards that are really close. And I get this is the third hearing, but I think there's a lot of little components to get kind of more of a fully supportive board here or approval that would require us to really do some designing from here at the dais. And I don't think that would be fair to you guys as the applicant or the neighbors, because it ends up throwing a lot of things in the mix and creating some changes that probably nobody's happy with.
What if they've lowered the plate heights, a condition of approval to lower the plate heights?
That's not where I'm at. I think the mass and the scale of the sizing and the end-to-end component of the structure. I get that it's an alleyway and it potentially it provides this property a little elements of design differentiation from more in the heart of that neighborhood. But for me, the way it sits in the current thing, there's still too many things that still need to be tweaked or adjusted or still to come to light to make it a full support approval for myself. The two components for me, the opening towards the front side of Chiquita, and then on the back side, the decks and the eaves and that other bedroom's not really opening up the rear side. It's really kind of end to end still. So for me, those are the two things that I needed to really see move forward, to be more supportive. And so that's where I'm at. Unless
Tom, if they lowered the plate heights, a condition of approval?
To me, again, I really would love to approve this house on third hearing. I concluded my comments by saying I would like to see the plates height lowered, but if it was just that, I would have approved it. My issue is mass and scale. And I said every time, reduce that second story, and it never was, not significantly. So my issue is kind of going to Lewis's, which is for us to approve something, we'd have to design, and that's not our prerogative. Yeah, I've never done one of these before where we've denied, but I think we do. Let me take a shot at it.
And so, just before, so since staff did not prepare a resolution of denial, it would be to direct staff to adopt it. We will bring it back. However, because this is the third substantive hearing, when we bring that resolution back, it'll just be a reflection on whether or not we accurately reflected what you guys did here tonight. Does that make sense or no?
if we deny it, there's no resolution regardless.
No, yes. So yes, there is. The applicant requires written findings on the project. So we would require a resolution of denial. Once again, they have remedies available to them. They could potentially appeal it. They need a written record of what it is you all did, what you guys did tonight. So
Okay,
apologies
the
for interruption.
record that we've laid out provides the
yeah.
reasons for the
Sure.
denial.
Yeah,
So,
right, but we would still need to.
so the
put that in writing.
motion here is that we direct staff to prepare a resolution of denial
Then
based on the project not meeting mass and scale and neighborhood compatibility guidelines.
I'll make sure you guys good.
And so that's my motion.
Second.
Board Member Coveney,
Yes.
Board Member Gibbs,
Yes.
Board Member Weil,
Yes.
Pro Tem Chair Tallman.
No.
Chair Gannon,
No.
motion carried. All right. Finished on a sour note. So that concludes our tonight's meeting. Do we have, hold on, guys,
Yep.
peanut gallery.
We have no other business.
No
tonight,
other
Madam
business?
Chair.
So that concludes tonight's meeting. We are adjourned to the next meeting, which is March 13th, my lucky number, March 13th, 2025.
I second that.